Jay and Terry. Okay, we'll get started here at 6:30, October 7th, and we will do a roll call, please.
Mayor John Harabidian.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem John Kaposha.
Here.
Council members Rachel Arizmendi.
Present.
Denise Delmar.
Here.
And Jean Goss.
Here.
Thank you very much. And is everyone okay with the agenda?
Yes.
All right, can I get a motion to?
Move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
And right now, we'll have public comment for items not on the agenda. Mr. Ziff.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Barry Ziff. I'm here representing the Library Board of Trustees, and I'm here to cordially invite you for this Saturday. We're having an open house. It's going to begin at 9 o'clock in the morning with coffee, juice, and other kinds of refreshments. At 9:30, we're going to have Bubble Mania for a family program, which we've had in the past. The children have really enjoyed that. We're also having a local history storyboard tour at 10:30. 11 o'clock, we're having live music. And from 9 to noon, we're having a friends table that's set up that's selling used books. We're also having the historical societies having a table available. And we're also having local authors that are living here in Sierra Madre that are there pushing their books and available for us to meet them. So it's also an all-day free DVD rental. Should be exciting. So I hope to see you all there. Hope you're able to make it. And I have some flyers for you.
From 9 to what time?
9 to noon.
Okay, thank you, Barry.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gary Hood, live at 465 North Baldwin, and I'm here to talk about this guy. I don't know if the cameras can get on this, if they can focus in on it, but
Yep, you're on.
this is one of the friendly furry friends we have up there around Carter and Baldwin, and I'm sure around most of the foothills. This guy's been making a regular stop in my backyard. He brings his treat from the neighbors 2 doors up from their fish pond. And anyway, the night that they were out, there were 2 separate bears of the same size up in the neighbor's yard. And we spent some time trying to warn the people walking. And there was one family of husband and wife and 3 kids. And they were probably making enough noise as they were walking along, but tried to identify to them that this was a dangerous area, that there were bear there, and make as much noise as they can. Looking at Wikipedia and going by their list, there's like 3 things that really startle a bear and would make them attack you. One is getting between the mother and her cubs. The other is startling or surprising a bear while they're maybe not being too alert, because their smell is 100 times stronger than dogs, so they have a real good sense of smell. And the other is when the bear is eating, which this is what was happening in the backyard. And when they're eating and they're startled, they would tend to be more, would attack more. One thing that is important to know that in an encounter with a bear, you're more apt to survive a bear attack if you have bear spray. A gun isn't going to probably help you. You're just upset the bear. So when you're walking, you got to make a lot of noise. We're talking about making up some signs because there's a regular bear crossing across from Tommy Ann Miller's house, from the east side of Baldwin to the west side of Baldwin. So we're going to probably put danger bear crossing and maybe put something on the back that maybe the state produces so that we can have something for the people to read and understand. When I left the house today, there was probably 20 to 30, I don't know if they were hikers, but they were all right there at one Carter getting ready to go for a walk. So I did my good deed and stopped and showed them the bear and explained it to them. So that's the report on the bears. So we're looking at doing something to put signs up.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. And we did agendize the bear discussion for a future agenda,
It is on your November 13th
Yeah.
City Council agenda.
because this is becoming more and more of a occurrence. So thank you, Gary.
Caroline Brown, Alta Vista Drive. I'd like to follow up on Gary's comments because one of the things I still think is very important is that Athens provide for us the choice between the small, middle, and large-sized cans, because there are plenty of areas in the canyon where people would actually purchase them and use them. You know, you purchase it in terms of prorated amount over a 3-year period. I think it's added to your normal monthly rate. But many people simply do not have the space for the large can that Athens has told you is available to us through their service. And I forwarded to the city manager a site called Barracuda, which also has been posted on our Sierra Madre Facebook page, showing a website where they have been testing this particular trash can in a site in, I think it's in Colorado area. So it's important that we get the opportunity to get the small one as well as maybe the medium. I think it's 3264, and then the largest one that's currently available to people is 93 gallons. So there's two things about it. You can't really store the big one, and then it's awfully heavy, depending on how far you have to push it up the hill and down a long driveway when it's full, even if it's a small can, so much less, you know, the type of a large can. If a person was going to keep that, they might keep it for 2 or 3 weeks until they had it full. If they were a family that didn't fill a big, they barely fill a small one once a week. So I think that's important that we pursue this. Added to Gary's signage idea, I was in Quebec for a couple of weeks, and I was out in the countryside at one point, and I took some photographs of the signage that they have, because moose happen to be a problem actually for car encounters. And the sign says that the animal is not always on the sign. In other words, you can put a sign almost anywhere, but that doesn't mean that's where the car encounter is going to take place with the moose. So similar to signage anywhere in the city, people still have to be aware beyond anything we might put up as signs. So thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Have we talked to Athens about the bear cans? I feel like this is.
Yes, we have. They
yeah.
they do provide bear cans, but it's only one size
The
bear
one-
can.
And so did we talk to them about the smaller
Yes,
size?
we have, and at this point, they have only agreed to provide one size.
All right, well, we might have to give them a call about this. And is the idea behind the bear can they just can't get into it, or does it block out smell too? And
They
stuff
can't, they can't get into it. They can't open it. The bears can't open it up.
All right, we'll give them a call, see if they can get another size. Any other public comments? All right. We'll move on to the order of business tonight, which is our review of the general plan update. Tonight we'll be looking at the land use section, water resources section, and the implementation program for land use and water resources sections, and the build-out numbers for the IR. Madam City Manager?
Mayor, members of the City Council, tonight we have Leticia Cardoso, who's going to be giving the overview, not so much for you as council members, but for members of the audience and people at home. We will start off with some general background about what the general plan is and why it's so important that we go through this process about every 20 years or so. And the end of the presentation is the specific policy direction we'd like to get from the City Council this evening. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Cardoso.
Good evening, Mayor Harabidian and council members. What I have for you is a presentation basically with the basics, just to bring everyone up to speed. Basically the basics about general plans. We call it General Plan 101. We'll go through the slides and we'll cover a few items. The first one is really, what is a general plan? General plan, as some of you may already know, is basically a set of long-term goals and policies agreed upon by the community that guide local land use decisions. It is long-term. It's a long-term document. It's typically prepared for about 20 years, and it guides the city in managing physical, social, and economic resources. It is community-based. The community is involved in preparing the general plan, in coming up with the goals, policies, and implementation to implement the general plan. It is a technical document. It identifies, again, like I said, goals, policies, and implementation measures. Implementation measures basically is what makes it happen, is what makes it real. For a lack of a better expression, it would be where the rubber meets the road. That's where you take your initial goal and you make it very, very specific so that it's actually realized. Again, the general plan is a blueprint, and it sets the basis for future decisions regarding land use in a community. Every city and county in California is required to have a general plan by the state of California. They are updated generally about every 20 years. Sometimes they can be updated actually sooner than that, depending on weather conditions have changed, and the city decides that it is time to update it. They are regulated by the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, and here in Sierra Madre, the current adopted general plan dates back to 1996 when it was adopted, and it was the first general plan for the city. There are required elements, which are land use, circulation, housing, conservation, open space, noise, and safety. A community can choose to call it different names depending on what it chooses is best for the city. However, it does have to provide this type of information. Even though it might not call it open space element, it still has to provide information about open space, however you want to call it. This is just a summary of what each element contains. Again, land use is the one you are reviewing. One of the ones you're reviewing tonight. It includes the type, intensity, and general distribution of land for housing, business, industry, open space, education, public waste disposal. It also includes a land use map, which you will eventually also be reviewing. And circulation, I don't want to read every one of them and bore everybody, but it basically, this is just information so you know what each one contains. The housing element is a kind of a special element in the sense that it is very technical, very specialized. It has its own detailed requirements from the state. And it is actually the timeline for housing element is typically every 5 years. It must be updated, as opposed to the rest of the general plan, which can basically be updated in a longer term. Conservation also addresses conservation and use of natural resources, including water. You will be reviewing the water resources section this evening, so it's part of that element. Open space, noise, safety are the other elements that are required by the state. Community can choose to have other additional elements that are maybe important to a specific community. It is entirely up to that community, though. It's not. They're not beyond these 7. They're not required by the state. So here for Sierra Madre, it has all the 7 required elements, and it's organized in 4 main chapters. Chapter 1, land use. Chapter 2 is resource management. Chapter 3 is hazards. And Chapter 4 is community services. Each section has different parts, overview of existing conditions, goals, objectives, and policies, implementation measures, appendices, and resource list. In this case, the update of the general plan will be a little bit different in that the implementation measures will be included at the end of the document. That's been was initially the direction of the General Plan Steering Committee. Appendices and resource lists will also be separate at the end of the document rather than included in every section. Chapter 1, the land use chapter, includes these different sections. Land use designations, that's the one you will be reviewing tonight, as well as the implementation for that particular section. The following sections, chapters, Chapter 2, Chapter 3 and 4, again, include their own sections, which you will eventually be reviewing as well. So the general plan is made up of text describing goals, objectives, principles, and standards, also implementation measures, maps, diagrams that help illustrate the language in the general plan. Your general plan has to be internally consistent. Goals and policies cannot conflict with one another, and not only within the same section, but across various sections of the general plan. It is a document to be used by the city and residents as a long-term outlook for the city. It's a basis for decision-making by city council and appointed commissions. It is informative to the community, developers, city staff. City staff refers back to the general plan to make sure that it is following in all of the policies, ordinances, approvals, that it is in line with what the general plan has basically laid out for the city. So again, discretionary zoning permits, construction of capital facilities, code amendments, strategic plans, city policies and programs, master plans, tentative tract parcel maps. So just a full list of basically actions the city takes that must be consistent with the general plan. And often, in fact, in applications for zone changes, conditional use permits, variances, they generally always have a finding of consistency with the general plan. To be a legally adequate general plan, it must be geographically complete. It has to cover the entire city jurisdiction, has to cover all the areas of concern for the city. The data has to be accurate and current. The implementation measures have to be clearly understood, easy to read, easy to understand, and also has to be consistent with state law and statutes. This general plan update will also include state requirements for basically climate change, GHG requirements. In this general plan, you will find it's addressing these requirements by including a little graphic leaf. The general plan steering committee decided that that would be the best way to basically outline and highlight how this general plan is in compliance with the state requirements. The process of completing a general plan update involves community outreach. The general plan steering committee conducted 3 neighborhood workshops involving basically stakeholder focus groups, visioning, town hall forums, neighborhood workshops, as part of the general plan, as part of it being a community-driven document. So again, here is just basically from the general plan guidelines. It's basically stating that the general plan has to reflect the community interests, and the success of the general plan will depend upon public acceptance, and therefore the community is always invited to provide comments through every process, being the general plan steering committee meetings or community forums and workshops, through the process of planning commission review, as well as now the city council review. The status of the general plan update, so far, the city council, as you recall, appointed a 9-member general plan steering committee. And that committee held public meetings, as I mentioned, in community workshops between November 2009 and April 2013, and then recommended a draft to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission started their review in November 2013. They have finalized a review of all 4 chapters and are now going through the implementation section. They will be finalizing it. It's expected by December of this year, January of 2015, and then the City Council tonight is initiating their review, your review. And you will also be reviewing the build-out numbers that are needed for the preparation of the draft EIR. The general plan requires environmental review, and so the build-out numbers, once they are approved by City Council, will allow the EIR process to continue. Staff recommendation tonight is for you to review and provide direction regarding the sections of the general plan that include introduction, the land use section and implementation, as well as the water resources section and implementation. You will also be reviewing and providing direction regarding the build-out numbers for a 20-year time period so that the process, the EIR process, can be finalized by the EIR consultant. As you may recall, at your meeting on May 27, there was an estimate 180 new dwelling units and some square footage of new non-residential building. That's 87,392 square feet that were part of that build-out number. The current projected dwelling unit number has been reduced to 121, and staff tonight will be requesting that you confirm that the 121 dwelling units is the appropriate number to move forward with the EIR process. And this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know.
If I could just summarize at the end, the council the last time, when you reviewed the build-out numbers, did decide that you wanted to take a look at the land use element before you gave your final policy direction on the build-out numbers. That's why we brought these two sections to you first to begin with. We're also, as you're aware, working towards the list of 40 items that pertain to the water meter moratorium. That's why we're bringing forward the water section for you this evening, so that we can keep these more urgent things ahead of. All of it's important, but we wanted to get these pieces to you as soon as possible. The EIR can begin work, and we can also continue working towards the items pertaining to the water meter moratorium. At this point, it is appropriate, if the council doesn't have questions, to perhaps have a discussion amongst yourselves on how you'd like to proceed. You can go page by page. It's how the Planning Commission has done it for editing changes. I would like to emphasize, this is your chance for everything, whether it's a picture you don't like, whether you'd like things worded a different way. If you think the committee, the Planning Commission, and staff might have forgotten an important policy or goal, now would be your time to make those recommended changes. At the end of the process, after you've reviewed all of the chapters in the implementation, there will be a formal adoption of this by the City Council at a noticed public hearing. So that's generally the steps we have to go through. We'd like to bring the chapters for you when we have time to go into them in more detail, give the public additional time to know in detail what's in each chapter. So when we get to the end to actually approve it, you'll be ready to do so. And at that point, I turn it over to the City Council.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the overview. And I think we first would like to start by thanking the General Plan Steering Committee for all the hard work and for the years and years of hard work on this. And having just reviewed these chapters, it's obvious that a ton of work went into this, and it's really appreciated. You know, I think that, 4 years is a long time, now going on 5 years. So you should be applauded for everything. And yeah, absolutely. And we do. We have members in the background, or in the back, and the volunteers that are sitting.
Planning Commission members are here also, so do you have
right.
questions from them?
And thank you for the Planning Commission for going through page by page, which I'm not inclined to do. But, if the other council members would like to, please speak up. But, the way I look at this is I think the most efficient thing for us to do would be to ask questions and then obviously have public comment and then we can discuss. But to the extent that we have questions, maybe just going through each section, the land use section, the water resource section, the build-out analysis, and then we can talk about implementation too. But I would be inclined just to kind of separate it out as in the big chapters, in the big buckets. And happy to hear from others if you guys would like to go in more detail within those. But, I would ask questions on each of these, open up for public comment, come back, we can discuss it, and then just kind of move on. Does that sound okay?
I'm okay with big sections. I just wanted maybe at the beginning make some general comments.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking maybe break it down a little bit more, just, maybe we can take each part of the, I don't know what paragraphs of the land use, just say, let's look at R1,
Mm-hmm.
and then discuss that.
Yep.
And move on to our,
We can do that.
our medium, just to break it up a
Yeah.
little bit, and again, might be comments from the audience. on
Yeah, and
various
I did get
parts.
comments from the public before, just making sure that folks would have a chance to comment on the different aspects of it, and feel free to come up at any time. I mean, I don't think that this is going to be one of those deals where you're cut off or anything, so feel free to jump up and give us your input whenever you'd like. I agree with that, that's fine.
Yeah, then, yeah, the intent, I didn't think, again, I read it so many times now, but I didn't want to go through the whole
No.
thing, but just if there's something that jumps out
Right.
at us that we want to discuss, or something that the audience wants to
Yeah.
bring up, then we can discuss that in detail.
Yeah, and my intent wasn't to wordsmith either, I think that the committee and the planning commission have done a great job, so, were you going to say
I mean,
something?
I completely agree with Mayor Pro Tem. We can do it like section by section. I've read this thing through. I like it. It looks really solid, but I think we need to let the public hear about some of the highlights in it. And maybe we have some commentary on it as we go through it.
And we can start off, if anyone does have general comments to Councilmember
And-
Ayers-Mendy's points.
If I could, before you begin, because I don't think it was mentioned in the staff report, the version that is in your agenda packet has, it's red line, it has strikeouts in addition. Those reflect changes between the steering committee's version and the planning commission's version. We wanted the council to see what the planning commission, essentially, their changes were. So those are that's what you see in this document, to clarify that.
Clarification, and the strike-throughs in this are the strike-throughs from the Planning Commission only.
Correct.
Okay, I wasn't, okay.
Some from staff too, I mean, like all the water conservation paragraphs.
Those are new.
Those are new. There, anything pertaining to water conservation,
Yeah.
staff did add,
Okay.
where there's additions, those are staff additions, you're correct.
Thought so.
And that's what I would like. I think we do need to spend some time on all the water conservation because that wasn't part of the 1996 general plan. It wasn't part of the general steering committee. So I think we really need to kind of go through those, each one. I'm not inclined to go page by page. Please don't make me do that.
You've already done that.
Already done that. And there are I do have a couple issues and things I'd like to bring up. I know that the public has some things that they'd like to say, so,
Okay.
If I may, I just wanted to also clarify the language that, the water conservation related language that staff inserted has also been vetted by the Planning Commission. I just wanted to make that clear.
Great, thank you. So we can start off with, general comments, if you would like, and then we'll get into each piece. Would you like to start?
First was the question, I know it's throughout the document, but it says that ordinances will be reviewed every 2 years. Just want to check exactly who that is. Is that staff? Then it goes to commissions, then it goes to city council. Just wanted clarification as to how it's going to be reviewed every 2 years.
Staff, then to the planning commission, or any applicable commission,
Okay.
and then to the council.
Okay, great. Okay, so just general comments, it was great to see the water conservation, sustainability weaved throughout the document, and really, I think staff did a great job in capturing what we had passed a few months ago, as well as what the state's requiring. I think just in general, if the LEAF is a designation for any sustainable items, is just to make sure that the LEAF is in all the right places, so I mean, I just highlighted some places I think it was missing. I actually wanted to see a definition of sustainability and the LEAF. And I know it was in one of the, it was on page 1. Sustainable policies and goals are called out by green leaf icon. But maybe just to even define that a little bit more. I think that's going to be important because it's referenced throughout the entire document.
Yes, I was going to say, it's, okay, good.
Question I had too.
Okay.
Which is not included at this point, but you will see it. It will come to you
I
as
see.
well.
Okay.
And we just sort of chuckled, because there was a whole meeting just on the definition of sustainability. So it's a great definition.
We're gonna wait to hear this?
Oh, my
I
goodness.
may not have the glossary with me.
And that actually might be worth hearing
Yeah.
before we start, if someone can find that. And while maybe someone is looking for it, or if we have it, just the grant writer in me this is just probably a little thing, is just to ensure that the tenses and all the objectives are consistent, because it's different throughout.
I don't have the glossary with me.
You don't know it by memory. You don't know this definition. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Are you pulling it up right now?
I'm gonna look.
Yeah?
And
All right.
I'll
Well,
pull it
we'll
up while
pull it
you're
up.
talking
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
I think
Thank
somebody
you.
knows.
Oh, here comes Deb. Deb's got it. By memory?
Have your definition by memory?
No.
Debbie Sheridan, and I was in charge of the glossary section, and I know sustainability is in there. That I remember.
All right.
But I cannot quote it I can't quote it. I don't have that in my brain. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that it is there somewhere if somebody has it
Pulling it up.
tonight. So.
Perfect. Thanks, Deb. Done? Okay. Any other general comments that anyone would like to share?
Just a quick one. I mean,
Yep.
I echo what I hear up here. It's just very impressive. I mean, a lot of work, obviously, but a lot of details that need to be in there are in there, particularly with reference to the water conservation issues that we talked about when we did the moratorium. Just really impressed with it. It's, I mean, there are things I want to know about. I have a number of questions, but in terms of just basic, the basic work product is very, very good.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, you said we could jump up anytime we
Absolutely.
wanted to. So here I am.
Have a shot.
And the reason I'm doing this is, yes, and I'm coming to the podium because I learned that in the General Plan Steering Committee meetings that you couldn't blurt from the audience. I'm trying to behave. And the reason I'm coming early is because I want to talk about something that I'd like you to think about as you're going through this, either page by page, bucket by bucket, or how you're going to do it. And sustainability, by the way, as it's listed in the objectives, I agree, is much too vague, and it was many hours of conversation to define it, and I think where it appears, it needs to be fleshed out a little better in terms of what it actually means. What I want to talk to you about, however, is something I've brought up before, and I'd like you to keep this in mind as you're going through this document, and that is the Growth Management Ordinance. Now, what the land use chapter in the general plan does is it describes the general distribution, the location, the extent of the uses of the land for housing, business, open space, and recreation. It also provides a vision for these land uses in the future, and it includes policies and strategies that will be applied to proposed projects to ensure that the village-like character will be maintained in this largely residential community formerly known as a bedroom community. What the land use chapter does not do, however, is to describe the rate at which this community is willing to apply these policies and strategies to any proposed projects and potentially alter the quality of life currently enjoyed. And inherent in managing the rate in which projects or developments may occur is the ability of community resources to support the growth. And you'll be looking at land use and the resource section together. That's why I want you to think about this. That's the reason to craft a growth management ordinance and make it a part of the general plan, as with the hillside management ordinance and the canyon zone ordinance. It could be called just a growth management ordinance, or it could be called a growth and resource management ordinance, and you could throw sustainability in there if you wanted to. Sierra Madre would not be pioneers in this, in crafting such an ordinance, as we were with the hillside management ordinance. There are already a number of these ordinances in place, some as early as the 1990s. San Luis Obispo has a very extensive one, including Cambria. Sonoma County has them. Santa Fe, New Mexico, places in Idaho. Essentially, they're all over the country already. And they usually exist in areas that are generally unique in character, geography, and culture, with a highly valued quality of life. The mission of such an ordinance would be, and you can certainly change the words around, but the idea would be that it would preserve the village character of our communities and unique hillside landscapes, guide future growth and development through effective planning, zoning, data analysis, permitting, and enforcement, make meaningful choices in terms of living environments, respect and preserve our history, and preserve resources for future generations to ensure their quality of life. Adoption of such an ordinance would promote the public health, safety, and welfare of the city, and may justify housing reduction opportunities in order to preserve the small town character, open space, low-density population, and to grow at an orderly and a deliberate pace that can be accommodated by all necessary available resources. And that would include water, public safety, schools, traffic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're talking about build-out numbers tonight. A growth ordinance would give teeth to and deliberate actions and calculations to producing those build-out numbers. They've changed considerably after the steering committee looked at them. We need a reason for those numbers to exist as they are. Might produce a small delay, but heck, we've delayed 5 years. And nobody, quite frankly, in this small audience, I think I can safely say that nobody would like to see this come to an end more than I. Because this process was started was initiated by me in my mayoral year in 2009, and we are still here talking about this stuff. Again, on the ordinance, alternatives to provide effective efforts to meet and or alter the RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment numbers, that are imposed by SCAG can be explored in such an ordinance. Even the RHNA Reform Committee, who is currently meeting, who recently met last week, has admitted that the general plan is the ultimate trump card and that the state really can't make you go outside your general plan. Such an ordinance allows the city to establish an annual quantified limit on the rate of residential growth based on defined factors and resource availability. Enforcement is through the permitting process. The method can be as simple as defining an annual allowable percentage rate of growth, or it can be more complex and based on calculations which include the number of remodels versus new builds, changes in population and employment statistics, and financial impacts of providing the services. And we can certainly use SCAG's jargon of job housing balance and all those sorts of things in order to make it effective in doing what we want to do. All of the additions in the document that you're reviewing tonight having to do with water would probably more appropriately belong in their detail in a growth management and resource ordinance. The general comments could remain in the general plan, but the specifics as they're written out would probably do better in a growth management ordinance. There they can be utilized in a formula to provide managed growth and development. Such an ordinance puts the critical factors that affect growth and the quality of life in Sierra Madre all in one place. These factors, if changed in time, and they may certainly well be, can be reflected in changes to the ordinance or a whole new ordinance without the need for general plan amendments. And nobody likes general plan amendments. Findings in such an ordinance can help protect Sierra Madre from the outside regulatory requirements imposed by the state and the federal agencies. This should be a community-generated ordinance, as was the Hillside Ordinance and the Canyon Zone Ordinance, and in fact, both general plans, the original and the one you're looking at tonight. If they were willing, the members of the General Plan Steering Committee would be excellent candidates for the task force that would be needed to produce this ordinance, minus, of course, our wonderful chair, because she's now a councilwoman. The application process could be exercised, or even an ad hoc committee could be established. The building moratorium gives this council about 2 years to fix what needs to be fixed. The general plan update needs to be finalized and implemented, and the balance between growth and development, the availability of resources, and the cost to deliver the services has to be defined. A growth management ordinance does that in spades. It needs to be considered.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Harabedian and council members. Before you get into too much of the nitty-gritty here, I just wanted to make a comment. First of all, I must say that I do not envy you. After 5 years of countless hours of input from the steering committee, the planning commission, the staff, and others, you now have to complete the general plan, which is the most important thing I believe you will ever do as a council member. The general plan will set the course of this city for the next 20 years. It is an awesome responsibility because it affects 11,000 people and their way of life. The people put you here to protect and preserve this way of life they so cherish. Being an optimist, I believe that you will see to it that the general plan contains the necessary provisions to ensure that future development will be true to the values this city has prided itself on for decades, the preservation of our small town, village-like uniqueness, and that all new homes will be compatible with and complement our existing ones. Consider carefully the influences by special interests, such as me, that you will be exposed to. I am here trying to influence you right now. I want the city to remain small and quaint. I do not want mini mansions built here. The builders want bigger houses to make more money. They're builders, that's what they do. Once you close the loopholes and approve the general plan, the developers will know that they have no other choice, and they will build homes that are designed to conform to the plan, and they will make a nice profit while keeping our city's identity intact. There are other sources of influence you will have to deal with as well. When doing so, please remember, you are here to do that which is in the best interest of the people of Sierra Madre, not me, not the developers, or any others. As I have said, I believe the general plan is truly the most important thing you will ever approve as a member of this council. Maybe I do envy you a little. What a great thing to be a part of, preserving a way of life that is becoming so rare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Very eloquent. Any other public comments or questions before we dive into the specifics? I think there might be, so I'll wait. Yeah, you can, please.
Why are you guys all the way back?
Yeah, there's plenty of seats up front. We need a teacher to tell them to sit up front, please.
They obviously don't want the A+.
I know, they don't.
All right, Caroline Brown. I thought I would tell you a little bit back to 1989 when, this is, what is that, 6 years or so? 7, 8 years before the 1996 general plan was adopted, because there were a few years that led into that. But prior, there was a consortium out in Irwindale of developers and interested individuals about how development was going on throughout the San Gabriel Valley. And one of the people that participated in that was Charles Martin, who was our city attorney. He was city attorney throughout various cities in the San Gabriel Valley, as well as interim city manager at different times. And he was even interim city manager here a couple of times. So the local newspaper under Jan Reed had review of their breakfast meeting. I think their breakfast meeting was here in town. And they talked about the ideas of what could be developed for the city of Sierra Madre. That the residential area was pretty much built out. The commercial area was pretty much a fixed kind of entity. The commercial zone, you know, west, what street is that over there? East, rather, what street is that over there? Was pretty much fixed, but there was opportunity for luxury homes and condominiums on the hillsides. And I said, over my dead body. Mm-hmm. And when the city council had or the planning commission had the first go at protecting hillsides, it was because a group of people up at Chantry Flat had some difficulties with students partying at the Chantry Flat parking lot. Some 300 students would be partying at the Chantry Flat parking lot and coming down late through the gate, causing a lot of problems. Actually, the one who really finally tipped the situation was a kid who was driving to the party drunk and drove into somebody's swimming pool. If the people hadn't been home that night, that young man probably would have drowned. But the neighbor said, wait a minute, this is wrong, can't have this. So they did an agreement with the city and the gate and the National Forest, rather, to close the gate at night. And when they had their final year study, you know, whether they were going to have it permanent, the only person that came forward saying, but how am I going to get to my property up there that I just bought. And we go, what property did you just buy? And he said, 100 acres. Well, we knew it couldn't possibly be 100 acres in Sierra Madre. It was only about 15 acres in Sierra Madre, but the plan was for a huge number of homes, as if it were a flat land somewhere, some 4 homes here, maybe 8, because I've got a friend, I want to sell a house, or 30 houses over here. And finally, the Mountain Conservancy was formed out of this pressure. And pressure always brings about that kind of change. You know, people look at impending pressures and they decide, no, this is not what we want. And they put their foot down in a variety of ways. Well, the general plan as it followed in '96 had its open space element in it. And we worked on it very hard. It's since been sort of moved along into the current open space element. And I noticed in Letitia's report, open space appeared 3 times in 3 different chapters. So it's not just one single chapter. It has an important element that reoccurs, and especially with water, because water is where Sierra Madre started all this in 1948 in the purchase of that inholding that goes up the Mount Wilson Trail. And then in 1968, they put it in Sierra Madre Historical Wilderness, and it actually bought land above Bailey Canyon for the same thing for watershed preparation, or preservation rather. And just recently, I spent some time with Vickery Murphy, who is the assistant to Carol Liu's office. And Carol Liu has put together a series of committees called Green 21, this, that, and the other. And so Green 21 Open Space is something they've asked me to chair. And as we got together here the other day, we thought, how can we do this? We looked at what was left in Sierra Madre that was privately owned, calculated whether or not there was water retention opportunities in the same way in which our settling basins operate, and it's sort of not exactly the biggest way in which water can be captured. We're already pretty much doing that with our open space. But what we decided to do is to be sure that all, I think, I forget the number of cities, but in Liu's District 25, to be sure that everyone's general plan's open space meets the needs of the people. So what you're doing here tonight is sort of the place I would start when I would chair the meeting. I said, look at what Sierra Madre is doing. We also know that Claremont did it because that's exactly one of the 2 elements that they decided to work on in 2003. They decided to work on the historic zone and the open space zone, not the entire general plan, just 2 major pieces of it that they felt were the biggest pressure. So that's what I want to say about what the background is here and why this is important to the people, especially the open space element. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Very helpful. Hopefully there's no quiz, you know? I mean, that was a lot of information. Matt?
Matthew Bryant, Edgeview Drive. I gave a handout to the city clerk. Could I ask that be, maybe it's already been distributed?
Yep, it has.
And first let me preface my remarks by saying that I'm here on behalf of a group called Preserve Sierra Madre. And the purpose of our group is to prevent overdevelopment in Sierra Madre. And with that purpose in mind, the general plan is of vital importance to our efforts and to the future of Sierra Madre. After many meetings, much discussion, taking a survey of the supporters of our group, scrutinizing all the relevant documents, the general plan as well as the municipal code, because they're kind of tied together, we have come up with 6 recommendations to improve the general plan. And we think that the overall general plan is a good one. The Citizens Committee that revised the 1996 general plan did an excellent job. The Planning Commission has also made some good changes. But that being said, there are still loopholes and ambiguities that can be exploited, and that can also lead to lawsuits. We heard one of the planning commissioners say at the last meeting that she was going to have to hold her nose as she approved the house up on 1 Carter, all because the developer may be allowed to do something that nobody wants. And that's what we want to prevent. A lot of people have a problem with the development over on Camillo. And supposedly that was allowed by the previous municipal code. But these are the kind of things that we have a golden opportunity to prevent those things from happening, save you folks a lot of time, save the residents a lot of time of having to come up here and fight these battles on a one-on-one basis. And so with that in mind, I'd like to go through each one of our recommendations. And the way I've laid this out is I'm showing what the current language is in in the general plan as it was modified. And the word ensure was changed to the word encourage for policy L6.2, L6.3, L7.3 in the residential low density zone. And so we want to propose that that word be changed back to ensure or require. And the reason for that is because, as we all know, encouraging somebody to do something takes the meaning right out of it. I mean, nobody has to do it. And all those policies that were changed to encourage are very important policies that really strike at the heart of what the citizens here in Sierra Madre want to try to prevent from happening in this town. So that would be the first change that we'd recommend. The second change is regarding policy L4.2. That sets the threshold at 4,000 square feet to trigger a CUP, a conditional use permit for single-family homes. And what we would like to propose is that we lower that threshold to 3,500 square feet and make it mandatory for all two-story homes, regardless of their size. And the reason we want to make that change is because homes that exceed 3,500 square feet and all two-story homes can have the most impact on the neighbors. And they should have additional scrutiny by the Planning Commission, as well as the neighbors having the opportunity to say why maybe a particular design is going to adversely impact on the value of their home. So that would be the second one. Now let me say this, that when we first talked about that, I was originally advocating lowering that threshold to 3,000 square feet. But I talked to John Hutt about that, and he said something that was pretty interesting. He said that, well, if you make it too low, that's going to drive everything into needing a conditional use permit. And he said that once somebody has to go through that process, they're going to try to maximize the size of the home. So maybe you don't want to make that too low. So 3,500, though, I think is a good size to trigger that threshold. And please, if anybody has any questions, feel free to interject. The second thing, or the third thing that we want to change is that policy L7.3 was removed in its entirety. And that policy states, and I'll quote, "Limit the height of new buildings to reflect the prevailing height patterns on the street and within the Sierra Madre community." Now, we believe that that provision should be reinstated. There should be some slight minor modifications, and we would recommend something worded like, "Limit the height of new properties and additions to reflect the prevailing height patterns on the street and within the immediate neighborhood." Because if we are trying to prevent Arcadia-like McMansions from ruining the character of a street or neighborhood, there can be no more important provision than this. A two-story home sandwiched between two one-story homes will have a significantly adverse impact on those two one-story homes. I've been a real estate broker for almost 30 years, and I can tell you that if your views get blocked, your privacy gets impacted, that really can have a significant impact on the value of your home. And it also can have a domino effect, where now you start a chain reaction on the street where every home kind of is almost forced into building a two-story home. So that would be our third recommendation. Our fourth recommendation is the current minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet is not mentioned in the residential low-density section of the general plan, except for the canyon zone, which requires a minimum lot area of 15,000 square feet for newly created lots. Now, a minimum lot size for low-density zoning is mentioned in the municipal code, and that's where it sets it at 7,500 square feet. The municipal code also mentions that R19 zone needs to have a minimum of 9,000 square feet, R111 needs to have a minimum of 11,000 square feet, and R115 needs to have a minimum of 15,000 square feet. Now, we want to change that because we want to address a problem. And the problem is lot splits in Sierra Madre. Our understanding is that the city is getting a lot of requests to split lots. And so you take a home that's on maybe a little bit of a bigger lot, and a developer buys it and wants to split it into 2 homes on 2 smaller lots. And that's going to increase density, which is precisely the thing that we want to prevent here in Sierra Madre. So we want to propose that the general plan, and this is such a significant issue that I think it belongs in the general plan just like it's in there for the canyon zone. And so we want to propose that we stipulate a minimum lot size of 10,000 or 12,000 square feet. And that means that in order to split a lot, you have to have a lot size of 20,000 or 24,000 square feet. And that's going to reduce the frequency of lot splits. And we'd also recommend adding to the general plan or amending the municipal code at some point that each of those R1, R11, R15 zones is increased by anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. And so we're just bumping all these maximum or minimums up so that it reduces the frequency of lot splits. And I think City Hall can testify to the fact that they are getting a lot of requests for lot splits, and we don't want to increase density that way. The next proposal we'd like the City Council to consider is that right now there are no incentives exist anywhere to build a one-story home. Or if you're in a one-story home now and you want to expand that home, to have it stay a one-story. And I'll give you an example. My brother sold a house in San Marino to a buyer. It was a one-story home on a street that had all one-story homes. And the buyer needed more space, so he proposed building a 2-story home, and now the neighbors are up in arms because they don't want to have a 2-story home on their street. But he said that because of the peculiar codes in San Marino, the lot coverage ratio there is 35%, and so in order to build a bigger house, he can only go up, he can't go out. And I would say that, speaking for myself, as maybe all of you too, that if my neighbor came to me and said that they wanted to add some square footage to their home, I would prefer that they go out rather than up, because if they go up, they're going to start blocking views. Now their 2-story home overlooks my backyard and disrupts my privacy. So we want to propose that we have some kind of language in the general plan, and the details maybe can be worked out later in the municipal code, that gives incentives for people to build a one-story home, or when they add on, to stay at one story. So the language we would propose would be encourage the construction of one-story homes by providing owners with incentives to build a new one-story home or remain a one-story home if more square footage is needed. And if you drive down some streets, you see people where they do these add-ons and they just add a box to the back of their lot. I mean, it looks awful. It looks awful. And so I think this would be a good idea. Now, one way, I don't want to jump ahead into the details, where you could give an incentive is in the allowable gross square area. That's the physical size of a home. You could say to somebody that if you build a one-story home, we're going to actually give you more allowable square feet. So you can build a little bit of a bigger home if you stay as one story. And likewise with somebody who wants to expand their existing home. They would get maybe 200, 250 extra square feet if they stay a one-story home. And I think there's powerful pressures to build 2-story homes, and they just have a lot of negative impact on the neighbors. Last but not least, we want to throw this out there. There is right now no design review committee. And my understanding is that that is something that Sierra Madre used to have, that it was taken away at some point. And the design review committee would be tasked with making sure that all new development is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and that the design will not have an adverse impact on the immediate neighbors. And I might add too that if we're lowering the threshold for a CUP from 4,000 to 3,500 square feet, maybe that puts a little bit of a burden on the Planning Commission. Maybe we can alleviate some of that burden by having a design review committee. So those are our 6 recommendations. And I want to just end by saying that as you review the general plan, that is going to be, the general plan, the city of Sierra Madre will become what the general plan allows. And that may not happen in 1 year, it may not happen in 5 years, it may not happen in 10 years. But eventually properties get torn down or combined with something else, and you end up with a town that emulates the blueprint in the general plan. That's why it's so important that we get this right. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I'm Gina Fireman Hump. I'm a member of the Planning Commission. I'd just like to say that one of those items has already been agendized to the next Planning Commission meeting, which is limiting the size of a house that requires a CUP. It's on the agenda at the next meeting.
Thank you. That is helpful.
Hi, Heather Allen on Grove. So much discussion going on, I had to rewrite parts of my speech. Wow, hard to keep up with everybody. Okay, someone handed me a copy of the red line, blue line, gold line, whatever we want to call it, version of the general plan. And a couple of concerns came to mind. The first one is that clearly parts of it have been edited or deleted after the General Plan Committee has turned in their final document and dissolved. I find this shocking. I find it disturbing. I understand that the Planning Commission reviewed copies of the general plan, well, they received their copy of the general plan with suggestions from staff. An example of this may be, I'm not sure because I don't know who wrote what, page 9, where it talks about land use characteristics. It says the urbanized area of the city is built out. That's the original version that the General Plan Committee wrote. If you look at the current new version, there's a word inserted in red. The urbanized area of the city is largely built out. There's a big difference when you add one word. It changes the meaning entirely. It leaves more room for more housing. It's like a loophole, essentially. Why is this important, people might ask? Well, because the state has been forcing these regional housing needs assessment numbers down our throat for I don't know how many years, and they're probably going to continue doing it. It's probably going to affect our future as well. We're having to appeal to keep our numbers down, and we don't know how long this is going to continue. Here in Sierra Madre, we consider ourselves built out. The general plan should reflect that factor. There were several parts of the general plan that were changed with different wording and verbiage. I'm not going to go into all the details. If someone wants to look at it, they can. But my point here is that the General Plan Committee spent hours and hours and hours putting this document together. And someone comes in and makes suggestions, is what I hear. Bottom line is the Planning Commission and the City Council have the final say, it sounds like. So despite whatever they wrote, someone else can come in here and change whatever they like or don't like. How fair is that to your volunteers? I'm not even on the committee and I'm insulted for them. I feel insulted just as a resident. If any editing is to be done, it should be by the residents. It's the people's plan. My last comment has to do with how long this process has taken. I can't believe it's taken this many years to get it passed, and it's not the fault of the committee. I've seen delays and obstacles done by past council members and staff, purposefully thwarting the progress of the committee. I challenge this council and the city of Sierra Madre to do the right thing. I challenge you to let the residents do the final wording of this document and pass this plan so we can prevent overdevelopment at 1 Carter, Stonehouse, the monastery, and anywhere else in town. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heather, just so you know, a lot of the changes that you're seeing are the changes that the Planning Commission added. The red line version are the Planning Commission suggestions. And the way that the state requires us to do the process is it has to go to the Planning Commission. And this is the way I always understood it. The community develops the vision and the guiding principles and does the goals and objectives as the community would like to see it. Then it goes to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission's purpose is to not so much edit the document as to verify if there's inconsistencies with the zoning, if there's going to be issues with anything that came about with any of the new language, and for them to make sure that the language is congruent with what it should be with the zoning committee. And the Planning Commission also worked on the water conservation part of it. And then it comes to City Council, and the City Council's primary role is to look at the implementation plan and also the document to see if it's going to be, what the costs would be. Is this something that's going to be overwhelmingly with the expense, and do we need to change any of the wording, and then to approve the adoption? But some of the changes that you're seeing are from the Planning Commission, and they did an excellent job in going through and picking up some things that we missed. But they did take out some things that I think we need to put back in, but that was their job. I don't think the staff put those words in. I'd just like to clarify that. Okay? Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Delmar. And Barbara Lee.
Hi, Barbara Lee Klein, and thank you, Denise, for clarifying that. As someone that was back with the 1996 general plan and someone that was with this one that we're trying to get through, some clarification would be nice, because it is a people's document. And as it was said here, I recall that it comes back to the people to go ahead and check. It is not the last stop at the City Council, because that's what we say, be careful who you vote in. Because it's a people's document, everybody in Sierra Madre has put their input into what they want to see the town survive going on last 20 years, this 20 years, especially since we're now still on the 1996 plan. If the City Council just is involved with the costs, that's a little bit murky for me. If you could go ahead and put that in black and white, what costs? So it's simply if just passing or not passing, tweaking a few spots that have just been spoken about this evening. Not passing it is what got us into the mess that we're in with the hillside ordinance. A lot of dragging of feet, getting things put in properly in their place. So we've heard of mixed reactions. Yes, we're in a rush to get it passed. And no, absolutely no rush whatsoever, not a big deal. So hopefully there's not a lot of redlining being done by staff. Staff are not part of the people's public here in Sierra Madre unless they live here. And I'd like to go ahead and be updated on what redlining was taking place. I know I don't have it in any of my books. Okay. And I've attended majority of the meetings, so thank you.
Thank you, Barbara Lee. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll bring it back. And just so we can clarify this from the beginning, Councilmember Delmar responded to some of the comments, but just so we know as a council, were there any edits or red lines that were implemented by staff that weren't approved by the Planning Commission? I mean, just so we know.
I didn't attend all of the Planning Commission meetings, so I'm going to have to ask Leticia. And we did say at the beginning of the meeting, the water resources was edited by staff.
But they were, but
the commission did review them,
yeah.
Yes.
That is correct, and I wanted to verify exactly what Councilmember Delmar explained, is that our charge was to simply format the document so that it fits in the appropriate format for review by Planning Commission and City Council. The red lines that you see are Planning Commission changes that were made through that process. What staff did was to format, and if there were any grammar or any sentence that didn't quite make sense, it was revised to stay within exactly the meaning of that sentence. Aside from that, the red lines that you see are the conservation policies that have been added, as well as Planning Commission changes that have been made over that review process.
Great.
There were a couple parts that, when it came to the planning commission, that the staff noticed were kind of red flags and brought it to the attention of the planning commission to see what they thought of the language.
Very good.
But I attended most, not all, but most of the planning commission meetings, so I was able to blurt out sometimes if they had questions too. So I was there.
That's helpful. Thank you.
So just a correction on my opening general comments. That was my understanding. The staff put in the water conservation or sustainability pieces, so it was the planning commission, correct?
Staff
Staff
did a first draft of it.
Okay.
But the
Then
planning
went to
commission
planning.
reviewed it,
Got it.
edited it, and presented their final to you.
Okay.
And that's just the water
Got it.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Helpful from everyone. And if we don't have any more public comment, or we might have one more. One more question or comment? I don't think so. Okay. We'll dive in now. Let's start with the land use section, shall we? And the mayor pro tem had said that he wanted to maybe break it down by density, talk about each one separately.
The maps, like, so you know what the land use maps are, do we have those, so you know what we're talking about?
The the map.
There's one in here, but it's small.
It's a small one. It's like a.
Online, you could have opened it up larger,
Yeah.
but the version in here is a
But
small.
I've seen the
8.5
bigger.
by
Yeah, I've seen the electronic version. But my preference would be if you guys, if there's any questions or comments or things that we want to discuss, issues that that anyone has, let's do that. I don't think we necessarily have to turn each page, but if on page 3 there's something that jumps out at you, please just bring it up.
We can go by section.
Yeah, let's go
Is
by.
everyone comfortable with the introduction, for example?
I would think that the introduction seemed fine. What about the land use and water conservation section, page 3 to 4?
I had no problems with that.
Yep. Yeah, we're just going by. Yeah, we're on land use section, and then page 3 to 4.
Page 3, this is under the
Yep.
land use and water conservation.
Right.
I was concerned that there's a.
Your microphone.
I was concerned that there's a statement in there that just is not true, and that's at the bottom of page 3. The paragraph reads, "Even when the current drought ends and rainfall increases, it will take years for the Raymond Basin aquifer to return to levels that will allow the city to use its wells again." We're going to be using our wells to pump our adjudicated rights. It's at 960. I mean, we're not going to wait for it to get back to, the 500-foot level. So is that really a true statement, the way it's written? I mean, we're going to turn them on in a couple of months.
I think this was intended to convey, to return to the full pumping, the full 2,800 acre feet we used to be able to do. It will take a long time, not the reduced amount under the 500-foot rule, et cetera. So it probably does need some
So
clarification.
why don't we just say a return to the adjudicated level of 1760 or whatever that number is?
No, because the whole purpose of this is to say that we want to get out off of the connection, so
I
to
get
come back.
that. There are I have other comments where I see that repeatedly, but as written, it is just not a true statement. So how do we make it to where it's a true statement,
You could add to return to levels that will allow the city to pump its full adjudication.
There you go.
Would be the simplest way to say it. Of groundwater.
Now, where are you doing that?
It's going to be on page 3 at the.
Last paragraph? Okay, read it again, please.
Well, does anyone have a problem with that
No.
proposal? I don't. That's fine.
So,
It's
Yeah.
at the,
go ahead.
it would be the last paragraph on page 3, under land use water conservation. Even when the current drought ends and the rainfall increases, it will take years for the Raymond Basin aquifer to return to levels that will allow the city to pump its entire adjudicated rights. Something like that.
Okay, just, move up just to the paragraph above it too, just to the point that Councilmember Del Mar is making, is, again, I'm not here to wordsmith, but just to drive the point home that Councilmember Del Mar is making, is I would make one more change. Let's see, the last sentence, land use regulations and policies which do not increase the demand for groundwater must be developed and implemented in order to sustain Sierra Madre's ability to, and here's where I would insert, be self-sufficient in supplying water to its customers, on and on. This comes up a few other times. I just think, I just think it's really important to drive that point home, that as we've said that in our resolutions, that the city of Sierra Madre desires to be self-sufficient or be sustainable with our historic supply of water, which is the tunnels and the groundwater, the wells. So is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, and even self-sufficient or sustainable is tough, right? I mean, because maybe just say as simple as will allow Sierra Madre to rely on its own wells or its own groundwater. I mean, because I think you could argue that you're self-sufficient even if you're wheeling in water from, it just depends how you define self-sufficient.
Then I'd say be self-sufficient in supplying water from its traditional sources to its customers.
And I'm okay with that, but I don't think we even need to say about the Raymond Basin and the adjudicated. I just think even when the current drought ends and the rainfall increases, it will take years for the city to use its wells again.
Or how about this?
The last paragraph again, going back to that?
I think once you get in, you're just getting into too much of the nitty gritty. This is just this is really just an overall view.
I understand.
Because then you're going to have to say, you remember, and this is going up to the state, so then the state's going to have to say, what are the adjudicated rights? Somewhere we're going to have to make reference to how much that is.
But it could also say, what do you mean? You said you weren't going to use the wells again and you just turned them on last month.
Well, they're not going to know that.
Well, I think we should be accurate in what we're saying.
But we're not turning all the wells on, are we? We're turning all the wells on, then we're going to use the water and we're going to turn them off.
Exactly.
So when this goes up to the state, we might not have our wells on.
I mean, I think there is some ambiguity with using its wells again, depending on how we're using it. So I don't, I'm okay with the clarification. I get Councilmember Del Mar's
I just think
point.
the simpler the better, just to say it's going to take years before we're independent. I liked the wording in the first one, and I would just take all that out from the Raymond
Big
Basin.
fan of saying what you mean.
Right, and just take all of that out.
So where do we stand? I'm okay with Mayor Pro Tem's clarification, and because I do think we want to be, I do think there's some ambiguity there, because I think that we will be pumping from our wells again, probably quicker than, years down the road, but I don't think that we're going to be pumping from them, to the traditional levels, our adjudicated rights. So is there a middle ground there where we can, because I don't think it's accurate to say to use our wells again, because we probably will use our wells again before then. So is there a middle ground there that you two could work out so that we're all on the same page? Or
I like the language that Councilman Capocha put into the paragraph above, and then just cross all of that out, even when the current drought.
Oh, so you want to cross all that out?
That's what I would do.
Oh, okay.
Cross what out?
Even when the current drought.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
I mean, only
Got
if
it.
we put in the language that Councilman Capocha said, because I think he said it very good.
I
Yeah.
agree. There's
Yeah.
really no need to go on.
It's fine with me.
Okay, please read the paragraph the way you want
Striking
it.
the entire
Strike
last
the
one.
first. You're striking the first sentence of the last.
Even when
paragraph.
the current
No, the
drought.
whole paragraph I
You
heard.
want to
I heard the entire
Just
last
take it out.
paragraph.
We don't really.
Says even when the current drought ends, that paragraph.
Eliminate the whole thing now.
Because we've basically said everything else in the paragraph above that. We've talked about implementation and policies and becoming self-sufficient again. So we've actually said everything that we need to say,
That's fine with me.
and it's less words.
With the change, in order to sustain Sierra Madre's ability to be self-sufficient in supplying water from its traditional sources, period.
I'd just like to say the reason we put in that last paragraph which is because the rest of the language doesn't really address the issue that droughts are likely to occur again in the future, that it's a reality that we're going to be facing again. And they sort of more address this issue of the current drought. And that's why we included that part of it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, but this is really just this is our existing conditions. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about in that sentence then above it, or the paragraph, say, due to the present serious drought conditions and any possible future
That sounds
drought
good.
conditions? And then strike down that last paragraph out, and then it captures what the planning commission's intent was, and
Perfect. It's fine with me.
Hold on, yeah, let me just make sure that sentence makes sense now.
Do that again, Rachel. Due to the serious drought conditions and,
I think they're gonna check just to make sure it makes sense
I
in
think that
that
makes sense, yeah.
paragraph. But
Fine with me.
due to the serious drought condition, due to the present serious drought condition and any possible future drought
And maybe,
condition.
and in recognition of any,
future drought conditions.
I think you want to say, comma, and in recognition of potential future serious drought conditions or droughts. Because I do think it's important to,
And then I'm going to ask our attorney, is that language okay?
Yes,
what you're hearing.
Yeah, what I'm hearing sounds good.
All right, well, that's helpful.
At the beginning, I just caught something right now, looking at this. First paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. It just talks about being a distributor to the resident customers. Technically, we have non-residential customers, just if you want this to be accurate. Just say customers.
Customers.
Okay.
Okay, where's
fine with
that
that.
now?
You're on first paragraph under land use and water conservation, page
First
3.
paragraph.
And then
6 lines
6
down.
lines down.
Just strike the word residents.
Sierra Madre is a public water supply distributor to the
To
customers.
Customers, okay.
Did we have a lot of rainfall in 2012?
That was a heavy year,
Was it
as I
heavy?
recall.
I think it was 19 inches or something.
It was our average.
Because we
Peaked
were
our average.
we were knocking on doors. I think we were getting rained on. Yeah, I think it was 19.
Anybody know how the Giants are doing?
We'll get you out of here.
Mr. Mayor, on page 9, I just want to point out, I'm not sure if that's a typo. At the bottom of page 9, it says the E. Waldo Ward Richardson House.
Yeah, we're combining two things there.
What are we trying to say there?
It's missing a comma.
The E. Waldo Ward House?
Richardson House.
Well,
No,
no,
you have to
even
say
that
the
wouldn't be,
Waldo- yeah.
what are you saying? The E. Waldo Ward what?
Wisteria Vine Carter, the Penny House on Lima Street, the E. Waldo Ward
What's that?
property. Ranch.
Is it ranch?
It's not a.
I don't know. Is it technically a ranch?
Property.
Just, yeah. E. Waldo Ward
call it
property,
property.
comma, Richardson House.
Comma.
Okay.
I was just wondering why Lizzie's wasn't on there.
Lizzie's in.
Is it? Did I miss it? I just made a note.
I don't think it is.
No, we can list it. I mean, we
Throw it in there.
could throw it in there.
After what?
Repainted and
Landmark.
everything. Yeah, it's
I do apologize to the public that we're editing here, but I think it's a good idea to include
So
Lizzie's.
underneath, page 9, underneath landmarks, where do we want it? Lizzie's in right after the Richardson house, or?
Yeah, right, either before or after Richardson
All right.
House.
All right, I'm now scrolling to page 12, 13.
Oh, real quick question
Yep.
on 10. I didn't know if, is it the 48 and then is crossed out and then it's a 9? Is it 9 properties?
It's 49.
Oh, I see.
49.
8 that's crossed
The
out.
gentleman that came before us, I think that,
Yeah.
most recently, yeah,
Yeah.
is restoring his home.
Thanks.
I would like a discussion on number 1, the urbanized area of the city is largely built out.
Oh.
What
Bill-
page?
It's on page 10,
Okay.
number 1.
Number 1.
The 1996 plan has it as built out, doesn't
Yeah.
include largely, and so, just so know, we didn't make a change to that, the committee did not.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily need largely in there. Is the planning commission wed to that? Did they think that there was a reason to have that in there for?
I think the reason that got put in was because some commissioners felt that Built out was a definite term that meant there were no empty lots at all in the city. And some commissioners felt that since there are still some empty lots within the city, that largely should be in there.
And I think we tried to match it up with the housing element, which just says it's built out.
Yeah, and that's a good point, you know, that,
You could make an argument to say that when you're 99% built out, you're built
built
out.
out.
You know, if
Yeah.
you were 50%, maybe that'd be a different story,
Right.
but I don't have a problem removing it.
yeah, and I'd probably remove it just because there would be inconsistency there with, you know, we've represented in other documents to the state that we are built out, so, but I, you know, take the point from the planning commissioners that, I think technically, you know, you could probably argue that, but, yeah, I would remove that.
Yeah, me too.
Take out largely.
Take out largely.
You having fun yet?
Yeah, no, this is great. I'm really happy that you guys did this and we didn't, to be honest with you. I
I want to point out that the next sentence clarifies, though, that very few vacant parcels exist. So
Yeah.
it acknowledges that there are some
There are
vacant.
some.
Okay.
Any issues, 10, 11, 12? Here's your map, Councilmember Delmar.
But it doesn't have the colors.
No, it's not very,
On page 16, this is all encourage conservation so that the demand for water matches the city's local supply. Do we want something stronger than encourage?
You know, I'm not sure if this was the encourage/require debate that the Preserve Sierra Madre were referring to, but, you know, I don't know if we can, we're requiring conservation right now, so, you know, it's.
Because like right now, we're making them.
Yeah, we are.
We're not
We're requiring
encouraging
it.
them, we're telling them that they have to.
So it's, I don't know if, I guess I can go either way. I mean, if you want require there, I mean, I don't think it's technically
I mean,
inaccurate.
I don't know. I don't know.
It'd be accurate either way, I think, so. What do you guys feel like?
Which section was that?
It's page 16, number 5. Encourage conservation so that demand for water matches the city's local supply.
3.5 ratio.
I'd say ensure. Is that what you're going for, is ensure?
We were talking about either encourage or require.
You know, the problem is, you know, you say we require today, but we removed the option of throttling or turning off. So we'll just continue to fine people, but that doesn't make them conserve. So I'm just saying, you really cannot make somebody conserve. So
You know, but see,
encouraging.
Encourage is just such,
Yeah.
it doesn't say anything.
Incentivize, how's that? We'll incentivize you by not fining you?
What would you?
This has nothing to do with fining them.
I know, I'm just trying to make a point, I agree with
You want to
you.
make sure your conservation
Yeah.
is with the demand for, that matches the city's local supply.
So is
I
there
mean,
a better word
you
than
almost wanna-
encourage?
It's almost like instituting conservation. You almost want to make it like a pillar of the community.
Yeah.
That conservation is just a second.
Institute conservation
you know,
measures?
Yes, institute conservation measures so that the demand for the water matches the city's supply. That
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah, it's good with me.
So you're adding institute
Conservation measures.
Conservation measures.
Okay.
And again, a lot of this, going back to what one of our public speakers talked about, the growth maintenance ordinance, a lot of this could also be put of that, part of that ordinance too.
Right, and that was one of those 40 items. One of the items on there was the
Yeah,
growth management.
we're definitely
ordinance.
bringing that back.
Because it's easier to change an ordinance than it is to change in
The
a
general
general
plan.
plan. General plan can be adopted, what, 4 times
You can make changes a year.
each year?
Mm.
And it's a big deal to do it.
Any comments on 17 or 18?
Just the leaf icon and making sure it's in the right places. And again, I don't think we need to go through every single one, but.
Yeah. Did you
Oh,
find?
But
some-
actually, I
did
would
you
think
find a
that
place?
one we just talked about needed a little
Oh, yes,
leaf.
leaf.
Institute conservation
Yes.
measures should have a leaf.
L16 should have a leaf.
All right.
Page 19?
Yep.
I'm on page 18. This is a question for the city attorney. L 2.3. I just want to make sure the current language that's in there is okay. We had a lot of conversation about this during the committee, and our attorney, Scott Porter, is the one who came up with that language. So I just want to make sure that we're okay.
Which one is it? I'm sorry.
L 2.3.
L2.
I think the more general statement of establishing zoning provisions for group living facilities, it's a very general statement. We can get into the specifics through the actual regulatory ordinances and the zoning ordinance. And then it says including floor area limits, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the statement, the more general statement is fine. We're not going to get into any legal problem because it wasn't as specific as it used to be.
Okay.
If I could just add a comment here, the latest, one of the things that the RENA Reform Committee is recommending to HCD is that the zoning and provisions for group living facilities be changed from R1 to its separate and own use because it requires social services and things like that. So I don't know if it affects what we're putting in here.
Yeah.
But when this goes to the state, that change may be in effect and we might have to do something about it at that time. It's currently R1, considered R1 and can be.
The way it's written.
And they want to take it out of there.
Interesting.
It's broad enough.
Yeah.
And that's in their latest, I should have
think this
brought
is
their
broad enough.
latest grid. They have a whole series of issues that they're changing. And they're going to approach HCD about that one. So I think we really got to make sure we protect ourselves if they make that change. They're also talking about doing exclusionary and inclusionary zoning to provide for a lot of these things too. So, we got to watch out for the wolf there.
And this one, I think, again, the general plan needs to be general, so this is a good broad that will capture all that.
So you're leaving L 2.3 this way it is in the, because
Yeah, the
when
planning
Terry
commission-
read it, she said
Right.
establishing. So I didn't know if you want to.
No, establish zoning provisions for,
Okay, way it's written.
right. And then on page 19, are we on 19 yet?
Yep. 19.
This was a note from John Hutt. He didn't like the way that the planning commission rewrote it. He says that this limits the ability to lower the CUP threshold for McMansion should be, and that whole section should be deleted and keep the existing general plan language,
Which one?
which is the one that's crossed out.
L
L 4.2.
You want to take out completely?
I'm just saying what John
We'll
Hutt.
discuss this,
would-
yeah.
yeah,
It's, and this is what Mr. Bryant commented on the 4,000 square foot.
So they have one
It's their second one.
to lower the threshold to 3,500 square feet and make it mandatory for all two-story new homes and additions regardless of size.
So I guess my question there is, did the general plan steering committee consider that? What level that you wanted the CUP to be at? Did you guys talk about 4,000 versus 3? And where did you guys come out on a particular number?
What we have there. We didn't put
Yeah.
put a specific number in there. We left the specific number out.
And I guess I can ask the planning commission and Letitia, yeah.
I would just like to clarify this section. What this is speaking to is not really this zoning requirement of a CUP for projects that are over 4,000, exceed 4,000 to be subject to a conditional use permit. What this is speaking to is that the general plan, the 1996 general plan, has a requirement that if you have a project that includes over 1 acre of land,
Right.
and that could be one or more parcels, it automatically throws it into a
Specific plan.
specific plan or a master plan. And what the change was really to say that it could actually be done through a CUP instead of requiring a specific plan. Specific plans are typically done for larger projects that then would ever occur in Sierra Madre. So what you end up having is a project that is large enough for Sierra Madre, but in general kind of maybe a one parcel that perhaps exceeds 1 acre by very little. It's automatically thrown into a requirement for a specific plan, which is kind of a unusual mechanism, but what it does is that it provides flexibility. A specific plan provides flexibility from zoning standards. So in reality, what is in the current general plan, it actually provides flexibility to a developer because it requires a specific plan. Instead of requiring that the developer follows the stricter zoning requirements, it kind of opens the door really to a developer coming in and say, well, I don't want to provide the 5-foot side yard setback. I really can only provide 2 in a specific plan. Lets me do that because it is a document that provides flexible development standards for a specific property. And by removing the requirement for a specific plan, if a developer doesn't want to do a specific plan, he is tied in to the existing zoning standards of the zoning ordinance. So that's what this addresses. It's not the issue of whether you should have a threshold of 4,000 or 3,500 or 3,000 for single-family homes to trigger a CUP. That's a separate issue. I hope I was clear. I'm not sure that I did a
I
good
think
job.
I can explain it, because I remember the argument, and I agreed with John Hutt when this was being discussed, and it is controversial.
I have the original language.
Yeah, but the whole idea was, again, by requiring a specific plan, everything is on the table now for the developer. If they're going to write a specific plan, they're going to have a tendency to want to ignore the restrictions in the zoning code and put everything on the table, and everything is negotiable at that point. So his point when he made the argument was, by just taking that off the table, you force the developer to comply with the code as written.
And if
It's
he
really
can't
that simple.
comply, it would require that he gets approval of a variance.
Yes.
He can't comply, so it requires that he does that. So it actually makes it more strict.
Right.
Really is what this change does.
Yeah.
So the change, so in the let me see if I can explain this. So in 1996 plan, the original general plan that we're updating, that's the one that has the comprehensive plan, the specific plan, the master plan. The committee took all of that language out and put what is crossed out here that you have. It starts with allow for new development. And then the planning commission did not, took that out, and they put their language, which then has the 400 square feet and the more restrictive.
So the old language, if I can just ask.
I'll read it.
Well, I see it. Oh, no, I meant the change that you,
Of the committee,
that
yeah.
you made isn't requiring a specific plan. It's just saying a conditional use permit?
Right, we took out the
Yeah.
specific plan. Master plan and specific plan.
Well, there's always a choice for somebody to submit a specific plan, but
I think Leticia explained it beautifully.
yeah, there's always that ability for a developer to say, I'd like to do a specific plan. The problem is that the current general plan required it. So we were basically requiring the developer to basically write their own zoning standards for property.
So we took
And that's been taken away. And it says here, what the Planning Commission has recommended is that it requires CUP unless a specific plan or master plan is approved, so that it's not required by the city, but if the developer wishes to do it, then they can do it, and then they wouldn't need a conditional use permit.
Yeah.
That's what it's clarifying. You may choose to make whatever modifications, of course, but I just wanted to clarify that.
So let's discuss whether, I'm okay with the proposed language as is, but, I understand some folks might have a problem with it. What specifically would we like to do with this language? The less than 4,000 square feet, that is kind of like a side note here. It's almost like a footnote of the whole point. But Councilman Del Mar, did you not like the way this was worded because it included the specific plan or master plan as options? Is that why?
I did not say I didn't like how it
Oh,
was written. I just
You
said
said Mr. Hutt. You're
Mr.
right.
Hutt
I
wanted-
stand corrected.
Mr. Hutt
Now,
didn't.
Mr. Hutt, did he have a problem because of the?
He didn't like the whole thing.
He didn't like the whole thing.
He liked the original language
Okay.
that we brought in because that's what he said.
And Mr. Bryant, hold on, I want to get comments here, and then we'll go to you really quickly. Mayor Pro Tem, you had said that you are okay with the language, or?
I'm not 100% sure I understand the original language that's here. Now, because I talked to John Hutt too. My interpretation of what John said was delete the whole thing,
Yeah.
not revert to the language that was proposed originally.
No, I think he wanted just to delete that. He wanted to keep the, you have to have something in there. You have to have something to say how you do it. See, I have his email. I'll get it.
Okay.
Folks?
That will
Oh,
teach
you?
Mr. Hutt not to come to this meeting.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Mr. Goss, do you have a?
I think I'm with Mayor Pro Tem on this, but I'm not emotionally wedded to a position here. I want to work this out.
Yeah.
I want to make something work here.
Mr. Bryant?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that, the thrust of this paragraph does seem to be geared towards something else. The problem is, though, it does mention that 4,000 square foot threshold, and that's the only mention, I think, of that in the general plan. And so I think maybe if you want to take this out, that part of it out, move it somewhere else, and then talk about what the threshold should be. But I don't think you can leave that in there because, again, that's the only mention of it, and I'm sure that's why the municipal code followed that, mention from the general plan.
Okay.
It's kind of an add-on to that paragraph, but it does have some significance there.
Thank you. And staff can address that point.
The reason that was added, the specifics of, except for single-family residents of less than 4,000 square feet in a residential, what this policy is addressing is projects that encompass more than one parcel or are over 1 acre of land. For those, if the development is a single-family residence of less than 4,000 square feet, then it would not require CUP, because regardless of the lot size, if it's a single-family residence, the threshold for CUP is 4,000, above 4,000. So it was just clarifying that for those that are under 4,000, that are on a parcel that is greater than 1 acre or encompasses 2 parcels, the CUP wouldn't apply. It would only apply if it's over 4,000. That's why I was clarifying that here. And the same thing for the canyon. So that's why that's in here, is just to make that exception, because typically you don't need a CUP for under 4,000 or under 3,000 in the canyon.
Right, and that's how I understood as well. Thank you.
Okay, so this is what Mr. Hutt said. He said policy L4.
John Hutt, you should have been here if you're watching at home.
is problematic and invites special rules for large projects, and is revised by the PC, limits the city's ability to lower the CUP threshold for McMansions. I think it should be deleted.
Yeah, so the
He doesn't like the special rules.
Well, and I think there's a point there in that if we do reference the square footage for potential CUP, whether it's for over 1 acre, under 1 acre, I think that it would be harder going forward if we did, say, want to reduce that to 35 or 3,000, whatever that number would be, that, there can be an argument to be made that I'm sure developers would use and homeowners would use, that doing or inducting such a change would be in violation of the general plan, and therefore we couldn't do it. So I do think that it does open up some danger there, so.
I would say this, just, looking at the two, I don't think we need to protect a developer that may develop something more than 1 acre that he's going to put single-family residences on. We don't really need to mention that. What the original language is just saying is that it is subject to discretionary review. Just that simple.
Yep.
So what is the harm of requiring discretionary review of something over 1 acre? It's not saying that you must do the specific plan. It's just saying it's discretionary review.
I don't have an issue. Beverly, sorry. I want to hear
Right.
from everyone here.
So we don't really need to protect, to keep the residential with, if a developer had an acre and a half and they were going to build 3,500 square foot houses on it.
Yeah.
So we're saying it's discretionary review. Otherwise, they could do it without the discretionary review. So do we care?
No, I agree, yeah. But is there anyone that's strong? I'd be fine reverting back to the original language. I think that's where you're headed, right? I mean, you'd rather revert back to the original language.
I am, because it doesn't require the specific plan. It's just saying such as a conditional use permit, not demanding a conditional use permit. It's just that it's got to be reviewed by the planning commission and city council.
How do we think
So
about
what? That's good.
I'm already in agreement.
I just like the language on the very last part of what planning had proposed, and I don't know if it's required, considering if we just put the old language back in place. But what if it's something like, unless a specific plan or master plan is approved for the proposed project, a discretionary review will be required, and then allow for new development and add all that other piece to it.
I understand. The issue, I guess the only issue with that is that I guess a specific plan or a master plan is still discretionary review, right? So I think.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
it all comes within the, within that definition, so.
But that is true.
I think we could list it out.
Yeah, because according to Letitia, she was just saying, a developer could submit a specific plan, but, but just a question about that. If they submit it, do we have to consider it? You do.
And that's the exact,
No, but I mean, if they submit a plan, can we just say, look, we don't want to see your plan, just comply with zoning code as is?
And city attorney can perhaps confirm what I'm going to say. Specific plans have to come before you for approval, and you have the ability to approve or
Okay,
deny
accept or
or ask
reject.
for modifications. So it's recommended by planning commission, but approval is by city council.
So again, there's no harm there, because whether that language is in there or not, they could submit a specific plan.
And then, to Councilmember.
no, wait, explain it. But we wanted to get away from them putting in the specific plans, right? That's why we took the language out.
Well, okay.
It's different.
The current language in the general plan, the adopted general plan, requires a specific plan or a master plan. And that is what John Hutt did not agree with, because what he was saying was that is built in, what we have built in the current general plan is the ability for a developer to write his own zoning requirements for a specific parcel. So he didn't like that, because that provides too much flexibility. Okay, so that language was removed through the general plan steering committee, and what you see crossed out is the language that the general plan steering committee proposed. Okay, the language that you see underlined is what the planning commission recommended. Okay.
Got it.
Further, if I may, if you want to remove the reference to the single-family residence of less than 4,000 in residential low density and 3 for residential canyon, what you're essentially doing is saying that if you propose a, say, 2,500 square foot single-family residence on 1.5 acre piece of property, that triggers a CUP. But it wouldn't trigger a CUP if it's less than an acre. So you're actually requiring a CUP for a larger piece of property, for the same size same size house in a larger piece of property than you would if you don't leave this reference here. So just keep that in mind. That's the only difference. But anyway, just wanted to clarify that.
Got it. And then I think I think your suggestion was going to be mine, which is except unless a CUP is required for the size, some more general language, or maybe you don't have the same suggestion as I had, yeah.
In order to maintain maximum flexibility, but make it, this is the way that, listening to everything I might suggest, is go back to the original language, but tweak it slightly so that it reads, require new development or the expansion of existing development or uses, including integrated or reciprocal projects or projects with a common scheme of development, which cumulatively comprise over 1 acre of land on one or more parcels, be subject to discretionary review, such as a conditional use permit, to be reviewed and approved, or must be approved by the Planning Commission, I lost a tense there, and the City Council. The changes that I'm suggesting would mandate that any project that's on, that's over an acre or comprises one or more parcels has to go through some level of discretionary review. In other words, you can't just run in and get a building permit. We don't have to specify in the general plan what kind of discretionary review that is. If you want to maintain flexibility, you can leave that for your zoning codes, and that's where you can start to grapple with when something is going to trigger a CUP. And if you do it that way, you're still consistent with your general plan. If you get specific, which you can still do, in the general plan about triggering a CUP at the 4,000 square foot level or 3,500 square foot level, whatever you want, the problem is it's hard to change it later. So if you want to, I think after listening to everything, what was trying to be attempted, what was to make sure that if it's the size of the lot that triggers discretionary review, and that discretionary review of whatever we're going to call it has to go to the Planning Commission, the City Council. We're not specifying that you can use a specific plan for your project, because we'll get down into that level of detail in our zoning code. But it's going to get discretionary review. It's triggered by the size of the lot. You're not just going to get to go to the building department and pull a building permit, because that's not discretionary.
And I think what staff was trying to avoid, which is still not going to be addressed by your proposed changes, which I think are fine, it's probably a very slim possibility, but it's the hypo where the property owner who now owns more than an acre of land just wants to build a 2,500 square foot house. That's all they want. And then they just want a ton of open space. Why would we subject that to discretionary review and bog down the Planning Commission and staff on that when that is exactly what we want? So I think the point is we need to have a qualifier in there that says, except for those single-family residences, that wouldn't trigger a CUP otherwise. I don't think you'll probably have anyone in this town, developer or private residence, that would buy an acre-foot lot, and then I just don't foresee anyone buying an acre-foot lot and putting a 25 or a 3,000 square foot home, but there is a possibility. So maybe we are planning a little bit too much for something that would never happen, but I can see why the Planning Commission put this in. The issue that I'm having is that if you put 4,000 and 3,000 specific numbers, then you're locked in. So why not just say something like, except for single-family residences that wouldn't otherwise trigger a CUP, and then just go right into it, because I think that's correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what the Planning Commission was trying to avoid.
That's exactly what we were trying to do, which was, in essence, require review of anything on a acre or more, unless it's this single-family house, smaller, that wouldn't require review otherwise, because that puts an undue burden on these people who are doing the right thing and shouldn't have to go through all the trouble of having a review. That's what we were trying to get at. And I think if there's a way to do it without putting those numbers in, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Than the way
I think just what
So I'm going to suggest, I'm going to revert back to my chair days, and I'm going to say, could we have the city attorney come back with revised language so we can review next time?
Absolutely. I mean, we'll actually, let's just do it. Well, can we do it now, just so we can put this to rest tonight? Yeah. You can take a little bit of time. We can go ahead and keep reviewing, but I do think that so that we can approve this chapter tonight, maybe try to do that.
And I just have one minor piece on page 19.
Yep.
It is wordsmithing, but important wordsmith. It should be residents and local businesses instead of local businesses first. It should be residents.
No, where are you?
11 L 3.4, which meets the needs of residents first, and local
needs of
residents and local business people.
I have one more for the same page.
Yep.
Objective L4. The way it's written, I'm not sure what that means, but I would just recommend we start it by saying, our objective L4, mitigate the impact of new development on the city's open space, trees, infrastructure, water, blah, blah. It just doesn't make sense the way it's written.
Can you say that again, please?
Okay, first of all, just delete the words "new development that mitigates impact." Strike that and replace it with "mitigate the impact of new development."
That's fine.
And I'll just note that we're 2 hours in and we're 20 pages in, so.
You know what? That's
I'm
remarkable.
doing
I know.
good.
I'm gonna be trying to whip us through this as much as possible. Take our time, but I'll just continue to remind us where we are. Page 20.
Did we reach
Well, the
consensus on
city
that point?
attorney needs to finalize.
Yeah, we're gonna come back. So as soon as she's ready.
Yeah, real quick. Okay, except for single-family residences which would not otherwise require a CUP, development projects that cumulatively comprise over 1 acre of land on one or more parcels require a CUP, unless a specific plan or master plan is approved for the proposed project.
Great.
It's fine with me. Yeah,
So now we don't have to bring it back.
So you earned your money tonight.
I know.
And Terry, would you email that to me? So now you're leaving. We discussed that second paragraph. Your
First paragraph comes out, the underlined goes away.
Yep.
Oh, she's just,
That was just a complete replace.
okay.
Page 20.
Page 20.
L52 was taken out by the Planning Commission. I do believe we need to, even though if you want to put it in circulation, that's fine, but we do need to, as land use, encourage pedestrian and bicycle access and pathways needs to still stay in the land use.
Okay, I'm good with that.
It's fine.
Okay, where are you now?
L5.2,
Just reinsert it.
Okay. You want to leave that in?
and we can move it to circulation and also include it in circulation if we wanted to. Redundancy would be fine, but we need to keep it there. Land use.
Okay. Is there anything on page 21?
Yeah, no, 20.
20.
L 6.2, we're back to that ensure versus encourage, and I recommend we revert back to ensure.
I agree.
Okay.
Same with the top of page 21.
It's fine with me.
Revert, L 6.3, revert back to ensure.
If I may, I just wanted to make sure, one of the ways on L 6.2, ensuring means that we would draft an ordinance to make sure that it happens. And one of the ways for this to happen is to come up with a view preservation ordinance. I just wanted to throw that out there because typically that's how you ensure that projects don't obstruct mountain views. So I just wanted to kind of
Well,
would be
that's
fine.
consistent.
put that out there to clarify.
Yeah,
That's one of the ways.
That's the
you
intent, is to
typically-
figure out a way to,
Right.
these address some of the suggestions also by Mr. Bryant.
Wouldn't it be do not unreasonably, or instead of to not unreasonably, wouldn't it just be encourage new, or ensure new or expanded structures in residential neighborhoods do not unreasonably
Yeah,
obstruct?
yeah.
Yeah, that too should, I think, be a do.
Did you get that, Madam City Clerk?
Yes,
All
thank you.
right, thank you.
And then, of course, 6.3, we need to have ensure.
Need an ensure, okay.
And I think that would all be in L4 too, right? No, L4 is an establish.
Yeah.
And why did, I have just a question for the Planning Commission. Why did we take out the 45-degree plane from that? In L 6.4?
It's because it's too specific in the ordinance, the R1 and residential canyon ordinances actually provide that level of specificity, and that's why it was removed, because it is more general.
Okay.
So if you want to ever change that angle, for example, you can do so without even having to amend the general plan.
I just know that was a real big deal with the community. We spent, what?
Yes, and it
10, 20
actually
hours
is.
on that.
Yeah, it has been included in both those ordinances.
Okay, so it's already been included.
is.
Thank you.
Anything else on 21?
21, yes. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to refer to Mr. Bryant's comments that 7.3 is
Yeah.
Okay.
one of the items.
So that's what,
Is there, just as a suggestion though, I mean, to reflect the prevailing height patterns, is there another way to make it flexible enough to where, you know, I mean, if you make it a little taller and none of the neighbors object to it, is that, you know, is the intent to just cap everything the way it is today? I mean, is that the intent here?
Okay, I totally did not follow that. What did you say?
it's
Well, it's just seems so restrictive to, it says limit the height of new buildings to reflect the prevailing height patterns on the street. So,
Well, that one's taken out.
It's
Well-
taken out.
I mean, I'll tell you, I think I can tell you why we took that out.
okay,
On a lot of streets, there isn't a prevailing height pattern, right? There's already a mishmash of things. And also, I think part of the discussion was we thought that it might actually end up in encouraging bigger houses than smaller houses because, you know, if someone has we've had this happen before in the Planning Commission where someone put in a big house right here and a big house right here, and now you have a new prevailing height, and the one in between grows bigger than it would have otherwise. And so, in a way, it could backfire and have an unintended consequence of ending up with bigger houses. That's why we didn't like the language in that one.
okay.
And that language came straight from the 1996. And so we didn't do anything. The Planning Commission
Yeah.
felt that it should be removed.
Right. So we like the idea of you know, limiting the height, but we didn't think that language quite was doing the trick.
Do we have that point covered elsewhere? I mean, I think, geez, like, I don't know.
well,
Well, it was in the preserve.
I would say that the establish an angle plane height envelope along.
Yeah, there's that, but there's also a policy that you will see later regarding getting approval of neighbors for two-story.
Yeah.
That, to
Okay.
a certain extent, addresses that. Of course, the zoning ordinances do have maximum allowable height already. But yeah, that's similar. I think that may be what you're
Is that in the residential section here?
It,
The low
it's in
density?
the R1. Well, it is that's where you are. Let me see. Oh, here, yeah, it's under L61.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that addresses some of that, at least for the adjacent, immediately adjacent, adjoining is what it says specifically.
Okay, now L 6.1 though is just requiring that we, you know,
It would be notified.
made aware of the appeal process. It doesn't really restrict anything.
Well, we do ensure that new or expanded structures do not unreasonably obstruct the mountain or basin views.
Does this,
It allows for input from neighbors. Currently, the way it works is that if you're adding a second story, or if you're building a brand-new two-story house, if you stay within the confines of what the ordinance allows you to do, you may not trigger the discretionary review process, CUP or variance, let's say. That means that adjacent neighbors are not notified of your proposal to construct a two-story house or add a second story, because that only occurs through a discretionary process when it goes to Planning Commission. So if you comply with all the code requirements without triggering a CUP, then you go straight into a plan check situation where your construction plans are being reviewed by the city for issuance of a building permit at the end of the process. What this does is that even when you comply with all the requirements of the ordinance, if you're building a two-story house or adding a second story, it will trigger the need to notify neighbors, which you would otherwise not do.
Okay, but so you notify your neighbors. So what? They don't like it, but do you have an entitlement or not if you're complying with the code?
Through that, and I will have to ask for Terry's assistance here. It's a process of notification for a ministerial type of approval.
This,
which is
this
plan
just
check.
gets your neighbors mad at you before you build it versus after you built it. So do we need something, this doesn't require, this isn't a discretionary review.
It's drafted more broadly than that, I think. My recollection, I think I was at the Planning Commission meeting the night that this language was tweaked, was there was some concern that not every request or plan for a new or expanded or existing structure in a residential area will trigger discretionary review.
Right.
You could just go in, depending on the size of the house that you want to build, and pull a building permit. And the neighbors find out when you're actually constructing the house for the first time. And so that was why it was drafted this way, to allow your immediate neighbors to be notified and be aware of any appeal process to the extent that there is one.
Mm-hmm.
See, the problem I have with it is if you have a nice neighbor that is sensitive to the neighborhood, they may listen to what you're saying. If you have a developer that just bought the property and is looking to flip it and make a quick buck by building a second story on it, he doesn't care. So you really haven't done anything. So I'm just wondering if there is a way that we can write this to, that,
Are you still on 6.1?
yeah, that doesn't, that, and again, I don't want to write too much specific into the code here, but the whole intent is to create this massing and changing the neighborhoods, as Mr. Bryant suggested, that a second-story house could possibly change the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So 6.2 doesn't quite get the job done.
And
Yeah, well, I think
7.3 was,
Yeah.
7.3?
Yeah, my issue more is with 7.3 coming out, which I can address after. I think I'm going to respond just to your point. I mean, I just don't think that the general plan, I worry that it's too specific and that it goes down this road where you're essentially getting into zoning ordinances within the general plan. And I understand what the fear is. The fear is that someone comes in and does something that's going to anger the neighborhood and put up a gigantic house that's not going to be in harmony with the neighbors. But I think we have things to address that don't necessarily have to be in the general plan. I think that's through the CUP. I think it's through the Planning Commission. I'm just wondering if you try to put any more teeth to this, anything that you do beyond what we say here, which is essentially we will notify the neighbors. If you go any step further, which is the neighbors have a say or, I don't think we want to do that.
What I'm mulling in my mind was a suggestion by Mr. Bryant, was do we want to have a second story CUP?
Yeah, with all due respect, I do not like that idea at all, and for various reasons. I mean, I just think that I think it's somewhat pejorative, and I think it is very subjective, and it gets into design review a little bit more than I'd like to in the general plan. And I think that as soon as you start requiring a CUP for every second story, I mean, that to me is not necessarily a policy-driven.
I didn't think he
it's not really a
required
policy. Yeah, I think Mr. Bryant's here, so he can clarify what exactly the outcome would be. But I just think you have to be very careful, because there's plenty of houses in the canyon, for example, that are 2 stories but are 800 square feet, or 3 stories. And I don't think anyone would argue that those houses are in any way not in tune with the hillside or with the canyon, or or in perfect harmony with the city of Sierra Madre. I think that going forward, noting that developments like that kind of make sense in the canyon and other places where going up makes more sense than going wide. If you start making everybody that wants a second story go in front of the Planning Commission, I mean, we're going to have a very busy Planning Commission, I think. Mr. Bryan.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this is a really important provision.
it is.
And
We're talking about 7.3, right?
Which provision? are you
Yeah,
talking
7.3.
about? Oh, sorry. So we've gone from 6.1.
And I think-
we're working them both
And it,
here.
and it uses the word, prevailing, and so if you have, let's say, a street of one-story homes, now let me give you a concrete example. I live on Edgeview. Every house on Edgeview is a one-story home, except my neighbor right next to me. Now, when I bought my house, it was already there, so I have no complaints about that. But the neighbor on the other side, who has since moved away, Michael Sizer, I don't know if you guys know Michael Sizer, he had beautiful views of the basin and of the monastery grounds. All of a sudden, that neighbor starts building this two-story home. And Michael told me that he went over there and talked to the neighbor and said, hey, listen, you're going to just eviscerate my views. And the neighbor's exact words to him were, F you, it's my property, I can do whatever I want. And so by that neighbor doing that, that was great for them, having those great, they enhanced their views, but it probably led to a loss in value of Michael Sizer's home by a few $100,000. And so if you say, what is the character of the neighborhood? If it's all one-story homes, that one person that builds that two-story home, great for them, it's going to screw over the immediate neighbors. Now, if you have a street that the prevailing, mix is, one-story homes, then two-story homes, then certainly somebody can build a two-story home. But the two-story home is what has the most impact on the neighbors. And so I think this is it's a fairly general provision, actually. I don't think it's that specific. What is the prevailing height patterns? If it's a mix of 1 and 2 and they go all over the place, then somebody can build a two-story home. But if you have all one-story homes, you don't want that one person to do that and just ruin the neighbors. So that's what I think this provision points at.
Thank you.
And I have to agree, I just think we just need to leave it in there. It's vague, I know it's not very specific.
Yeah.
But I think it also then can give direction to our zoning and everything.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the 7.3 as written, because, if you look at the objective, and Councilmember Arizmendi had a point, and I'll go to her right now, but, the point of the objective was make sure the development is compatible with the design and the scale, and scale kind of is something that needs to be highlighted. You take out 7.3, you're not even addressing height, so. Councilmember Arizmendi?
Oh, so yes, I agree with the 7.3. I'm okay with putting that back in. But I was going to go back to just quickly back to 6.1. But if we are adding insure to 6.2 and 6.3, and we're going to be required to put a view preservation ordinance in place, we may not even need L 6.1. Correct?
You still need some language for 6.1 so that you can then use that as your guide to put it in the ordinance. You just don't need specific language. But you still need something in your general plan that says, we can put this in our ordinance because we have it in our general plan. Did I say that correctly, Leticia?
The L 6.1 is reflecting the objective of L 6, which is to preserve and protect privacy, mountain and basin views of neighboring properties. So it's really specific to that. And the way it's drafted, it's very general. We're not saying that every single property, every single house is going to require discretionary approval. We don't know that. That gets fleshed out in the zoning and in the development codes. The way it's drafted, though, is if someone is going to add new construction to exceed that one-story height and significantly increase the volume and the overall and the footprint of the overall structure by building up, then the policy, which would be reflected somewhere in our code, is that the immediately adjoining neighbors should be notified of that and be made aware of an appeal process if it exists. Right. Now, if it's discretionary project, that's going to happen anyway, because you're required to give everybody notice that's within 300 feet of your project. And so they would be required by law to be given that notice and be made aware of not only the appeal process, but the approval process. It's written more generally to also pick up the possibility that we might want to try to create a policy through the zoning code to provide some kind of special notice or appeal for projects where you are building up and impacting the view. And we might do that really through implementing L6-2.
Okay.
So it is a very general provision, but I think it works.
Okay, that's fine. I just was trying to address the Mayor Pro Tem's what factor. So if that's the purpose of it, fine keeping that in and keeping, adding 7.3 back in.
All right. Did anyone have anything else on 20 or 21? 22.
Just leafs on all the L.83, 4, 5, 6, 2.
Yep. Agreed. I'm on to 24.
This is just, what I had mentioned earlier is just keeping the tenses of all the objectives the same, but
Can we go back
it's
to
super minor.
23 just a minute?
Page 23, yep.
Yeah, L86.
Yep.
That's new language from the Planning Commission?
Yes, anything, yeah.
And so this was not something hashed out by your committee?
No.
Okay.
And this, I assume this comes from Commissioner Spears, probably. I think this was his idea, yeah.
And I think the big word there is consider. Doesn't mean that it has to be done, but just consider it.
Consider's okay, because we had some discussion about this in our earlier meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What page are we on?
I'm now on 25 and then 26.
I just had a question about 13.2, and is that something that we do on a regular basis, is evaluate policies for the public?
13.2, page 26.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. You know, we have some redundancy. We have the same objectives, right? L 12.4 is the same as L 8.8 on the next page, on the previous page. If you look at page 25, L 12.4.
Yep.
And then you look at page 26 at 8.7. Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah.
8.8. So those two, that's a duplicate.
Water saving.
Huh.
And then,
Well, there's a lot of that with those.
yeah, I don't know.
Building sustainability.
Is that what it is? Okay, because then we went to 8s.
Is it
So
a-
you guys will just fix all that?
Yeah, because you did. It's L 12.3 and 12.4 repeated there. Yep.
Okay.
As 8.7, 8.8.
So that will be.
Good eye. Okay. 26.
On it, just real quick.
Yeah.
I just noticed it, but objective L1.
26 L1.
Yeah, page 26, L1. That was changed quite a bit. Incorporate measures to promote sustainability is now what used to be adequate parking for Canyon residents.
That is, well. Yeah.
Oh, it was? Okay. All right. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like in Congress when the bill is like titled something and then it's just gutted and something else is all entirely put in.
So I just had that question about the evaluation of policies in public parking areas to benefit Canyon residents. Is that something we do regularly? Because it says to continue to evaluate.
No. But we will.
Thought we didn't, yeah.
I mean,
Is that something new that the new general plan steering committee put in?
I don't know if that was in the original
It's okay.
1996. I can tell you that.
It was.
I can tell you that we always have our ears and eyes open. It just isn't much of an opportunity there.
I think the 1996 one was develop ways to evaluate policies, and then we just continued it.
Mm-hmm. And we do have an eye, you know, like I said, open, but there just aren't a lot of opportunities there, short of acquiring property.
Okay.
Hey, can I just say something really important?
Please. You need to use the restroom?
No.
Oh.
But now it's
We're getting to
tied.
that point,
The
yeah.
Giants are tied.
Okay. Giants are tied. Well, my Dodgers lost today, so my world's over.
I know your
And,
world is over, but ours isn't.
Yeah.
2-2.
We're on 27. Well. 28.
You have a speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, Mr. Gold. Proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just direct your attention to L7, which you've passed up already, and ask you to consider increasing the minimum lot size so that we can further reduce our density. 7,500 square feet, if that could be increased, 9,000, 10, 11, whatever you think's appropriate to make lot splits so that when lots are split, they aren't too small and our density remains low. Please consider that.
Thank you.
21?
Yeah, I think it's page 21.
I don't see a.
Yeah, and Mr. Bryant brought that up, and I think it's a decent point, that we should consider. I'm just not seeing where in the general plan we make that specific, where we say that the minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet. Letitia, do we have that within the general plan, to your knowledge, or is that spelled out in the zoning codes? So it's spelled out in the zoning codes. So I think that Mr. Gold and Mr. Bryant's points, I think that is something that the council could, consider outside of the, because I think it's a good point. I think we should consider it outside of the actual language of the general plan, because I just think that it probably would be a little bit too specific, and the general plan steering committee didn't go down that road, planning commission didn't go down that road.
No, but I think you could put just a policy or in there to say establish or reduce the lot size or investigate or do something that would trigger part of the implementation plan, to put that in the ordinance to reduce it.
Yeah.
Do you have some language?
Yeah, where would we?
Come on, you guys.
It's implementation, but.
No, but you have to put.
Policy first, and what is the policy? The
You could
policy
add,
is to.
maybe a suggestion, consider increasing minimum lot sizes for all the low density residential. You could just add a policy that says consider increasing minimum lot sizes for single family lots in the city. You could do that. You could even do that in the general land uses. Or you can include it in residential low density specifically. You could include it in the
And I'd like stronger language than consider.
Or why wouldn't could we just create an objective that says, instead of, it could be like objective L, whatever it is, that says, it's just as simple as reduce lot splits, and we could be a little bit more eloquent with the language than that, and then the policy there would be to.
See, that's a policy already, though.
Is that too specific as an objective?
Right. It's too specific already. So if you can come up with an objective.
Where's that line? Yeah, where's that line between objective and policy?
When you're actually getting down to an action, reduce, and that's why the objectives, as you notice, they're a little vague.
Makes
They
sense.
say development that is compatible or preservation, so that you avoid a verb. Typically, when it's an action, you're using a verb. Reduce, encourage, prohibit, require. That's a policy, because now you're down to that level of specificity. But you can certainly come up with a new objective that is a little bit more general, but then you can
We could
add
probably
that
just come up with a
policy.
policy. Then why not come up with a policy that
It
says?
might fit under objective L4. Put a policy under there. I mean,
Yeah.
Mitigating the impact of new development.
Councilmember Del Mar, can you tell me why this wasn't discussed during the committee?
I can tell you why, because it really wasn't an issue at that point. We had covered a lot of it, but lot splits wasn't something that we really talked about, and it's becoming more and more prevalent now. We have to remember we did land use 4 years ago, so yeah.
When the real estate market was
When
pretty
we
much
had
nothing.
It was nothing. And,
Development slowed.
Yeah.
and actually, I remember we actually even talked about could there possibly be about lot splitting, and there wasn't that much into
Okay,
it. But we
how
need to
about
talk
under
about it.
L1, continuation of existing patterns, because even policy, maintain areas of city for residents upon varying lot sizes. Maybe we can stick something in there.
Can we be really brave and just say prevent McMansions?
I'd like to.
Can we be the first city
I would
in
love
California
we would
to
have
do
to
that?
define that. That would be the
Prevent,
hard part.
reduce our size of lot splits.
Well, I do think so. I think it probably does work under the it works under all these objectives. So I'm happy to put it under L1 if that's where you guys want it. And having it under L1 makes it an upfront priority. So it would be L1.7, which would be reduce.
Ensure that minimum
Preserve.
lot sizes reflect,
I think we should just come out and say we want to reduce lot splits. We want to encourage. We want to ensure that lot splits don't occur.
oh, just say discourage, develop a policy to discourage lot splits,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah, perfect.
I don't think you can really say
no, that's not.
What
Can-
about just
can you not say that?
maintaining current lot sizes?
Because current, we allow the smaller ones.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
we want
I
to make
think
Existing,
bigger.
maintaining existing lot sizes.
I think what you can say is something like restrict lot sizes for restrict.
Yeah, the only issue with the lot size, so if we go down the whole lot
I don't
size,
think it's a whole lot.
I think that's a tool to get to the outcome, which is we don't want lot sizes. And I think it's a good tool, and I think it's a really good idea, which is, you kind of get there circuitously through, making the lot sizes bigger. I just think that you can do it other ways too. So I don't think we need to specifically outline here how we're going to do it, but I think that one of the policies should just be encourage or ensure that lot splits don't happen. I know we can't ensure,
How
but
about
Can we
just
just-
discourage
we can
lot
reduce-
splits?
Reduce lot splits.
Can't do it.
just discourage. Well, I don't know.
Discourage it.
Discourage lot splits.
Something about develop regulations that
Discourage lot.
discourage lot
Yeah,
splits.
yeah.
I don't know.
I know. It
Or
would-
if you reduce the number of lot splits occurring or something.
Or develop
How about
regulations.
reducing the number?
I know.
How
Develop,
reducing the numbers.
how about
Yeah,
developing,
reducing the number.
developing regulations that increase minimum lot sizes?
Say that again?
Develop regulations that increase minimum lot sizes.
No, because that's.
Because when you have to make them, they can't do is, instead of
just
9,000, it's
I just-
lot
15,000.
I just like the.
Okay.
So, the reason why I don't like that is
Forbid,
because I
can
do
we say
think
forbid lot size?
I think we should just come out. What the objective is to discourage lot splits. Okay, so we could say discourage lot splits, and then if we wanted to get more specific, you could say discourage lot splits by increasing minimum lot size. I mean, you could say that,
You don't want to say discourage though, because that's,
don't we? I mean,
you want to have something stronger than discourage.
Ensure,
minimize
ensure lot splits do not occur.
minimize lot splits.
Reduce the number.
Reduce the number. I'm fine with whatever you guys decide. Do we want to, though, include the subordinate clause, which is by increasing lot size, by increasing minimum lot size?
You can add that as, if
By, for example, or,
for example, increasing.
I think we're confusing the city attorney.
I'm running out of page.
Yeah.
I think if you give just a very general statement, if you're more trying to discourage lot splits, then you can just say that, and that doesn't limit you to the various clever ways to do so. I mean, there could be incentives for not doing it, but certainly one thing to do would be to encourage the required lot size so that
Increase,
but then on the other hand, if you increase it by too much, you're actually giving, you're making it more possible. Well, let me back up. Yes, that would be, that's one of the things that you can do in the zoning code, but there could be other things to do to discourage lot splitting.
Can we ask staff to maybe come back with something?
Then that would limit us from being able to approve this tonight.
We're not going to approve this tonight. Are you kidding?
I would love to approve the land
I don't
use.
think they want to come back and review this again.
I do
think
not.
we want to
Yeah,
put
but
it to
here, how
bed
about
and
to
move
Councilman
on.
Del Mar's point? You say reduce the number. Discourage and reduce the number of lot splits. Minimize the frequency.
You could say including but not limited to increasing lot sizes, minimum lot sizes. Because then you could do other things as well, but you're sure to then include the increase of minimum lot sizes. That would be an
You
option.
okay with that?
Okay, read the final one.
So discourage or reduce the.
Minimize the frequency of.
Minimize the frequency or,
Minimize.
yeah,
Well,
minimize the.
Excuse me.
Frequency of lot splits.
No, we're not trying to minimize the frequency.
I'm trying to get a.
Because, look, it's not a matter of doing 10 lot splits in a year, it's a matter of splitting lots. So I do.
Discourage, just go back
I like
to discourage.
discourage.
I like discourage lot splits, and
Develop
and we'll take care of it in the
regulations that
zoning.
discourage lot splits by
Including but not limited to
including but not
increasing
limited to.
minimum lot sizes.
Okay.
Yeah, but Councilman Damar, are you okay with that? Okay.
Okay, who has the final?
still want a policy that says,
All right. Are we clear on that, City Clerk? No?
I don't have it. If the city
Develop,
attorney does.
develop regulations
Hold
that.
on now,
Develop regulations that discourage lot splits,
I feel like that only increases our-
discourages.
I almost want to get through the land use before we do.
that discourage lot splits,
Yeah. Well,
including but not limited to increasing minimum lot sizes.
Does that work for you guys?
But not limited to
Increasing minimum lot sizes.
increasing minimum. Okay,
all right.
got it.
I was. I'm going to encourage, if we need to use the restroom, I think just get up and do it, I think at this point, because I think if we break, then.
I'm running.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we're ever getting back in these seats. So if anyone has to use the restroom, please feel free to do it. Councilmember Goss has escaped.
Limited to increase.
What page are we on?
We're on
Here?
page 29. Oh, excuse me,
26?
26.
No, we passed that.
Oh, did we?
26? 20.
Were we 28, 29?
Just all the leaves on 29.
Where, Rachel?
Oh, it's pretty much all of L17, I think.
Yeah, 17.
17.
Now, L17, the whole reason, I guess I'm really kind of confused with this whole page, because L17 says incorporate measures to promote sustainability, is what the planning commission changed it to. And what we had in there was actually doing.
What happened here was that we just pushed that objective to the next one. That's all that happened. And in fact,
Then I just see a bunch of stuff about why.
yeah, I just noticed that the numbering wasn't changed, so I'll do that. But that's what it was, because we had to insert the incorporate measures to promote so that we could put in the water conservation. That's what it was.
Great. Page 29 or 30, anything?
Just L19, I think that's promote safety, the safety, we promote safety of individuals in our
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
there's no participle there, is there?
Yeah,
Encourage
that's, many of them are written this way as I'm going through them
That's what I
now.
was saying with the consistency and how the objectives are written, maybe just to
We're on
revisit
page
all of them.
31.
They need to be revised, and typically what will happen is we can say promoting or encouraging or maintaining. That's typically the objective kind of
Exactly.
tense, and then the policies would be the action. So I'll make sure that.
Because I think actually we have that in our version that we have those words in there. It just got taken out and.
Yep.
moved between.
Um, .32.
Well, I just have a question about 32, 19.5. I mean, that's really specific when you're doing a water impact fee. But you have the word consider. Okay, I get it. All right, never mind.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Okay.
You want to put consider in?
It is in there.
It is in there.
In 19.4.
Oh, I was at 19.
I was, yeah, she said 19.5.
Oh, okay.
On page 33, I know there's a lot of thought put into this, but I want to bring it up. L 20.2. What this does, it says, you know, limited to 55% of lot area on other lots, blah, blah. And it says to 5,500 square feet plus 70% of lot area in excess of 10,000 square feet. So, in other words, your lot, you're limited to 55% of your lot area until you get to 5,500 square feet, and then you can build up to 70% of the lot area in excess of 10,000 square feet. So the problem is that this does incentivize lot consolidation. So in, you know, our R3 areas, and again, you know, we have to expect what we plan for, but there's a lot of R3 property where they've got single-family homes on them, and I just see that eventually these things are going to get bought up with people with a long-term view. When one comes for sale, you know, a consortium is going to buy it. Then another 10 years, the one next to it comes for sale, they'll buy that one. Now they've got two, maybe pretty soon you've got three. Now you've got massive apartments in an area because you've incentivized the, you know, the consolidation of lots. So I don't know. I mean, I've thought hard about this. The problem is that we do have a lot of R3. You know, what percentage of our property is R3? It's, I forget, 13% or something like that. But, you know, eventually it's going to get built out. And my fear is that with prices going up and little by little, you know, Sierra Madre being a desirable place to live, young professionals can't even afford to buy property here if things keep going the way they're going to be buying condos and apartments, and there's going to be a real incentive to convert some of these old single-family homes to apartments or condominiums. So you know, again, that's the heart of the plan is what are we planning for?
Which one are you talking
I'm looking at L20.2.
Okay, so this has to do with the basements, right?
Well, not necessarily. It just,
I mean, this is on our little narrow lots that they're talking about, right?
well, my point is that it gives you an incentive to buy up adjacent little tiny lots so that you can build an apartment complex. Because you're allowing 70% lot area when you have in excess of 10,000 square feet. So, I mean, you know, it gets into a larger question of how much of our general plan is R3 and whether it should be. And I would just say to the community, it's appropriate to have all this R3 property if you expect apartments in these properties as time goes forward.
And I guess my question would be, what do you think would be you know, sorry, go ahead. What would you like to do about it, I guess?
I'm in favor of downzoning.
So how do you so through the general plan, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't have a specific plan. I'm just pointing out that there's a lot of R3 property that has small, old, single-family homes on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, up and down East Highland, you know, even Sierra Madre Boulevard has a lot of old single-family homes sandwiched in between apartments. And do we, as a community, expect to see apartments in these places? If you do, the plan is fine. If you don't, then the plan is not good. We should be suggesting that revert to our medium rather than keeping it as high density. So it's a larger question, but I'm just throwing it out
I
there.
think it goes to this water conservation issue. I mean, that's why we did the building moratorium in the first place, is to deal with potential increases in population that'll put a stress on all of the factors in the city, particularly water. I completely agree with you on that.
Are we going to go over the zoning map?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
So that's where we would address that?
you could do it at that time.
Could, or we could now. I mean, is there by,
With the maps and everything.
See, the general plan, again, is your plan. Are we planning for that property to accommodate high density? If we are, then the plan is fine. If we don't want to see that, then we should be looking at that.
What are you considering high density?
More
than 13 units?
13 units per acre is
so
what
that-
is defined.
I know, but when you, so that's.
Oh, I don't have a personal opinion about what any parcel should or shouldn't be. I'm just saying that in my observation, there's a lot of property that is R3 that is covered with old, single-family homes.
Okay.
So if that's the big picture, what the intent for this 20.2 was specific to basements?
What this,
I was just wondering if there's a way.
no.
Oh, no,
this,
it's not.
this has
Yeah,
to
it's
do
just
with,
all-
this
it's like
has
all
to do
floor
with
area,
the multifamily
lot area.
units and area, and this one has to do with, you can't do more than 13 units per acre. Right? And then the L22 has to do with the small or narrow lots, which I think Councilman Capoche is referring to would be the homes that you tear down. So you have a little lot, little lot, little lot, little lot.
But then it also addresses all other lots too.
Right.
So I think that the Mayor Pro Tem's point, I think, goes to a more general issue of whether we want to, as a council, start, downzoning some of the R3 zones, and how we do that.
Yeah.
Is the question. Whether we do that and how we do that is the question.
If I may, I just wanted to point something out, is that currently in the zoning code, for R2 and R3, which is the 2-unit and then the multifamily, multiple units, the zoning ordinances currently do not, they limit density. It's basically how much lot area are you required per unit, but it doesn't cap, it's silent on maximum allowable floor area. This is attempting to do that, whether you agree with it or not. It's entirely your discussion, but I wanted to point that out, is that this was actually suggested by John Hutt. And one of the points that he made was that there needs to be some kind of a limitation on square footage, not just density. And that's what this speaks to, whether the details can be worked out otherwise, but I wanted to just kind of mention that because that's what he was attempting to do by adding in the maximum square footage, which
Yeah.
doesn't exist
No,
today.
that's helpful.
Yeah, and again, I agree with what he's trying to do. My problem is that it incentivizes lot consolidation. Yeah,
Okay.
So should we say no lot?
I don't have the answer.
You can't split a lot and you can't join a lot. No touching the lot.
Well,
Or you just,
See,
or
what-
you do away with all R3 zoning in Sierra Madre.
yeah.
I mean,
doesn't San Marino, they don't have such a thing, do they?
I don't know if they do.
Well, he would know.
Mr.
He
Bryan
would
might know
know.
the market
I
a
can
little better
just
than we
speak
do.
to this again. As part of that group, Preserve Sierra Madre, I mean, Councilman Capoche is exactly right, because the city will become what the general plan allows. And we have these kind of funky areas in Sierra Madre where you have a home, you have maybe an apartment building, you have something else. Over time, people will buy up these properties, they'll combine them, and then you're going to have big condo and apartment projects. And so if we don't want that to happen because of the water shortage and the density issues, then you have to really consider maybe downzoning those properties. Properties that are in those zones that are already a certain size, I mean, those would be grandfathered in. But you wouldn't allow maybe some of these, other situations to be turned into these high-density apartment complexes and condo projects. That's what I think the last thing that Sierra Madre wants. So I think that's a serious issue. And unfortunately, though, it's a little complex, and everybody's getting tired. I'm getting tired. And maybe it's something you want to revisit and really gather up some information on and study those maps, because it's just a huge, huge issue for Sierra Madre. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's can we put a tab on this and come back? Let's get through
I'm fine,
Because I think we do need to look at the maps, and to take care of the issue that you're
agree,
talking about,
yeah.
you're going to have to do that in the zoning map, not
Yep,
so much in
I
the
think
language.
I think you're right. I think you got to look at the maps. Anything else on 33?
Objective, I'm moving on, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Objective L22, it's maintain the safety of individuals, right?
Yep. It's another missing participle.
And we also have,
What did she say?
we have,
Maintain the same.
we have 3 objectives that are the same. L22 and L19, and there was one other one, and L17. They're all the same objective,
Different zones.
The different zones?
but
They're
just in
different
different
zones.
zones.
Yeah.
One
Can we
is
somehow clarify
RM,
that?
one is RH. Well, L19 has safety of individuals in RM neighborhoods. L22 has safety of individuals in RH neighborhoods.
But it doesn't have it in the objective.
I'm reading the objective.
On L17?
L22.
L17 has,
Incorporate measures to promote sustainability.
I have a different L17.
Oh, you're looking, well, there's
objective.
2. Go to the
There's two
previous
L22.
page.
Oh, okay.
That's the
Page
one on
29.
29.
Promote measures, incorporate measures to promote sustainability.
Okay. And then on objective L22, incorporate measures to promote sustainability.
Couldn't those be moved up to a higher level before we, I mean, what's the point? You know, I have the same opinion. Why keep repeating it? It applies to every section.
It's in different zones.
I know, I understand
it's
it's
the
in,
same. Yeah.
but then you have to change it. You have to say incorporate measures to promote sustainability in such and such a zone. I understand it, and here it's in a different zone, but we need to pull that out.
Or you can just have that once show up in the more general the
Exactly.
general types and mix in the beginning. We could also just move it there if you'd like, and you could say it in all zones or in
In
all
zones,
land
yeah,
uses or
because
something.
it's just too repetitive.
Yeah, we could do that in all land uses in the
Thank
city.
you. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there any policies underneath the respective objectives, even though they're the same, that are different, though? Because, I mean, the objectives might be the
Well,
same, but I have to go-
there is. L 19.7 is a specific example. It says, consider requiring individual meters for each dwelling unit for new construction. That is intended for the high density, right?
So I think the problem is with doing the single one in the general is you're going to lose some of these policies.
Not unless you just put that one there where it belongs. That's the only one that applies to the multiple, high density.
The RH neighborhoods has that require the parking below habitable spaces by
Yeah, I just,
ground,
yeah.
which is not in the other sections.
So pull out the ones that are specific to the section and leave those in, and all the general ones that are,
But you're leaving them under an empty objective, though. What objective are you leaving
Yeah,
them
there's no
under?
objective.
I see.
So I would recommend really just putting in what,
In the objective, I agree. Just
Area. In
the
clarifying in
objective
the
which
objective
zone it is.
which zone, so that we don't have to
all right.
leave it, but we're just going to specify RH, RM. Thank you.
For objective L23 just reads funny.
Page
Maybe that
35.
just, yeah, page 35. Maybe that just needs some wordsmithing.
Providing an opportunity.
Providing an opportunity for, encourage new opportunities for small entrepreneurial businesses.
I think
I don't know, it just
provide.
sounded funny.
Yeah, make them, they should all be, the same.
And I think that happens at the very end.
New opportunities, additional, I don't know, I'm not sure what.
The objective should be provide an opportunity, right? Not providing an opportunity.
You can't, because that's an action. Actions that would be policies. That's the convention of general plans, that when you're actually saying.
But
you're actually
providing
taking
isn't an action?
Well, it's a.
Encouraging
No,
new
not
opportunities, encouraging an opportunity for small entrepreneurial businesses.
I'm fine with that.
Sure.
As proposed.
It's incorporating, it's encouraging, it's providing, but then when you say actually provide, that's the action. That's the direct action. It's a little.
Well, we have others that are action, like
Incorporate
L22, incorporate
Yes.
measures.
Yes, there are those inconsistencies. Yes.
Yeah, so just fix them.
We'll fix them.
Got it.
Leaves on page 37.
Okay, we're on page 37.
Sorry.
Anything?
We
No, no, no.
narrowed our lead.
Where, Rachel, all the 19s or what?
The 19.9, and then all the, oh yeah, the numbering's off, but all the underlined parts, I think, are leaves.
Okay.
New development.
38, 39.
I'm good with those.
We took out stump stone. I'm not sure what that is.
And you see you have an objective L31 on page 41, and then you have your policy is L8, so.
Yes.
Okay. But, no, that's okay. But the policies match the objective.
41, more leaves.
Leaves.
Where, Rachel?
I think it's all L8.8.9, 8.10, 8.11.
Page 41? Okay.
42. is
You know
there-
what? Yeah, 42, L31.8, unacceptable was removed and replaced with adverse. I don't know if you can actually say yield no adverse. That's not really realistic, because every sort of development is going to impact noise, air quality, I mean, I think you need to have something, I like unacceptable.
Yeah.
There. Because every,
Yeah, because unacceptable, I don't think either work, actually. Maybe
Yeah.
significant.
Significant, it could be a wide range depending on the individual.
Yeah.
Significant is typically what CEQA, often looks at. Is it a significant impact that would trigger other types of, review? That's kind of a commonly used.
so yield no significant negative impact?
Sure, I mean, yeah.
I'm okay with
Or
that.
even significant adverse?
I like it better than the other two
Significant.
alternatives.
So significant?
I think the Councilman Del Mar said significant negative impacts. Fine. Page 43. Hmm. 44.
I was just wondering why objective L33 was taken out in its entirety. Anybody has that answer?
Yeah. Did we get an answer to that?
wondering the
That's a good,
same.
it's a good question.
And then leaves.
Page 44, Letitia, at the top.
Page 44 at the top. Provide for infill development in the manufacturing area to create a uniform and consistent pattern of development. East Montecito, I assume.
I don't know why they took it out, so I can't answer that.
I have in the 1996 plan that's the Measure V analysis, objective L33.
Yeah, which has been moved now to L34, so it's still in there.
Only
Let's,
thing I can possibly, is it's very similar to L32, but not exactly the same. Maybe someone
well, I have a
felt
feeling that it's
there
specific,
was
maybe
some-
that it was too specific because I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, but were they worried that it infringes on a potential East Montecito plan that is forthcoming? I mean, I don't,
Encompasses Montecito.
what's that?
It encompasses Montecito.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It doesn't infringe on it, it encompasses it, so it's protected by it.
Does
right,
it-
and maybe they didn't want to do that.
Does Commissioner Hutt know why would they took that out?
I think it's because we thought that was an action rather than a policy, and it didn't belong in the plan in that way, because it's very specific numbers. And we thought it should be more general.
Hmm. It is pretty specific.
Yeah.
As long as you don't mess with Measure V.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to that level of specificity
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Now that
Okay. And then all of L31s just have the leaf.
leaves.
The leaf monitor tonight.
Page 45.
And then this is all Measure V, right? 46,
This
47.
is all Measure V.
Measure V. Brings us
We're getting there, folks.
Just a quick question about the Measure V. Did that include the changes for the Kensington? I didn't notice. Is that in there? We already put that, you put that in already,
We didn't
right?
revise Measure V
You guys voted on
for
it.
Kensington.
Town voted, so that's how you got away with it.
Right, Measure V was not revised for the Kensington project.
Yes, it was.
The one
I don't think it was revised.
No, the-
Measure V,
But we,
You took it to a vote.
Yeah.
went to a vote, but I don't, it wasn't for a vote
46.
to amend Measure V.
No, it was just to allow
No,
the project.
Measure V
allow the
protected
voters
it,
to
but-
approve the
And voted
project.
on the specific plan
Depending on
and
the
the
vote
other
of the
parts-
people.
pieces of
I
it.
have to go back and look at the
Well,
language
we'll
of the
check,
ordinance.
it's a good
I
question.
thought,
We'll
I
check.
thought we took it, we made a modification to Measure V.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sweet.
Page 46,
That was consuming us at the time, so,
yeah. Page
okay,
46, oh, yeah.
okay, it's there.
Thank you,
All right.
Leticia. It's right there.
Page 62. I don't know if, page 62?
What about it?
Is there anything you like?
Good.
Any comments, questions? I got to the end of the Measure V.
We're on 63.
61, 62, 63.
Hmm.
Mr. Gold?
I didn't hear, well, first of all, I don't hear, so 90% of what's being said, I'm unaware of it. I apologize. It's the fact that I'm deaf, but I would like to call your attention to L31-4, and I know you passed it up, but it struck me as worth looking at once more. Accommodate a full diversity of entertainment and specialty stores, including but not limited to bookstores, galleries, boutiques, performing arts venues, hotels, and cafes. I was just wondering if hotels were, where would we put a hotel, and would that put a burden on our water system? That's my only comment.
Thank you. We have the, why am I
We have
blanking on the,
The jailhouse.
The jailhouse, yeah.
We do have
We
a,
have a hotel.
we do.
one room.
The Shirley, yeah. You know,
I don't-
yeah. Yeah, good points.
Kensington?
Yeah, you know, the general plan steering committee considered probably that language originally, and I don't know if Councilman Delmar, if you guys revised it, but you know, I'm okay leaving hotel. I don't think that.
I think we just left it.
Yeah.
Take out the brewery?
But they took out.
Yeah,
the
I mean
brewery.
that. As a lover of beer, I'm a little offended. Was that the planning commission?
Water issue.
Water?
Water.
Let's hear this.
It wasn't so much water as the issues of intoxicated clients.
And just calling out breweries. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't not allow breweries, you just didn't want to call that out as a specifically recommended.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a specialty store either.
Yeah.
Probably, you know.
It provided.
Actually, is a hotel a specialty store? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Gould. I think hotel's going to stay, though. All right, back to 65.
64, is fine, 65.
$66.
Just to be clear here, all the areas that we have strike-throughs are from Planning Commission, right?
Yes.
Everything.
35.4 was,
Right.
yep, from the planning commission.
On page 66, I just didn't know if there's a reason we called, or state laws just called out. Should there be some reference to any law or regulation if it's not preempted?
Oh, please, that one, we took forever to write this one.
I am not an attorney.
Maybe
I'm
federal
just-
law. No, it's a good point. You could be preempted by federal law.
39.1. Just to add, maybe when not preempted by state or federal, law. And again, I don't know what other regulations could preempt, but maybe just ensuring that we're not limiting it to state law.
It's referencing that government code. Let me see what they said here. Mhm. And that's state, right?
That's state. Mm-hmm.
Development impact fees.
I mean, it can't harm to put federal law. I mean, we could be preempted by federal law there too, right? I mean, it's so.
Doesn't hurt to
Yeah,
put it in.
just let's include that. Okay.
Now we're on implementation.
Well, and let's just let's put a bow on the land use section before we get to implementation. I think that there was a more general issue with the downzoning that the Mayor Pro Tem brought up, which I think that we should revisit when the map comes before us. And I do think that there was a point brought up by Mr. Bryan about a design review committee, or at least charging maybe the planning commission possibly with design review. Are there any thoughts there? I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know if the planning commission would ever want to do that. You know, I don't know if as much work as they have, but you know, there are cities that have design review committees / commissions, or their planning commissions are charged with that. And is that something that we want to consider here in Sierra Madre?
I don't know. I think we need to do a little more homework on that one.
And it isn't, to be clear, it's not something that has to be in the general plan. You can establish a design review committee by ordinance outside of the general plan.
Or you can put in the general plan, consider a design review committee.
Well, you could do that too.
That way it's in the general plan, you can consider it if it works or it doesn't, but at least you have it in there.
I don't have a problem with that either.
We can do that if someone wants to find a good place for it. I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that, too.
Leticia, can you find a good place for that?
Yes, objective L7 on page 21.
See, she's so good, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. Has design right in there.
There you go.
Say
So
consider.
the language is consider.
Consider the the establishment of a design review committee? Or do you want to be even more general?
Of design review.
Of design review, yeah, because a process, because you might just incorporate that within the planning commission.
A design review process. And where are you putting that now? Is it a number?
That would be L.
Page 22.
I'm on that, 22?
Mm-hmm. L7.5.
I just want to say that it's something that the planning commission already does.
It's the unspoke, yes.
We do that all the
Which we
time.
can't acknowledge here.
Right.
This is-
It's
yeah.
something, well, in order to implement the rules, that the zoning code that we have, a lot of it has to do with how buildings
That's
are
right.
constructed. So it would give, if it ended up in the hands of the planning commission, it would give the planning commission a little bit more strength.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
But what the suggestion is to really do a design review on everything that's being built. That's the suggestion.
Yeah. And I
That
think
would put a big burden on the planning commission as it's structured now.
Mhm.
So that's my concern.
I mean, the language I would like to see is consider a design review process.
Yeah, that's what we're
Which doesn't
suggesting,
require
yeah.
a review of every single thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And
There
it
could
could
be
be
certain
for bigger
threshold.
projects or something.
it
But-
certainly can come into, it can be a valuable, process to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, I look at, there's an example that on Grove Street, just south of Grandview.
Yeah.
Drive down that street and look at that monstrosity. I'm sorry to say, but it's hideous.
South Grove?
It's on, yeah, and I mean, that home itself makes a strong case of why you should, because
I don't know.
it's just a stucco box.
Some people like stucco boxes.
Some do.
You know?
Yeah, but I
does
mean.
it match the?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. And
So,
Yeah.
harmony. So we could put in there to consider, or strongly consider, or you know what, implement.
I think consider implementing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
consider
design review
implementing
process.
a
Design review process.
which may in fact be a committee, or it may be
Yeah.
part of the planning commission. But I think
Got
do
it.
that. Okay.
Anything else? Any final? I would like to, with the changes that we've made, approve. I mean, we can approve the land use chapter tonight.
Sure.
Well, you can't formally approve
Formally,
it till it
but
comes back as a
keep it
public
off,
hearing
yeah.
item. You don't have to see this again if you don't want to, if that's what you're referring
Yes.
to. We can
Exactly.
consider,
Precisely what
you
I'm
won't
trying to
see it
say.
again till it's put together in the final for
Okay.
you to approve format.
And just to clarify, this is the land use section within the land use chapter.
Oh, wow.
There's
So
other
there
sections.
there are more
say that.
sections to this chapter.
There are more sections.
Just to be
You-
sure.
You break the news to us right after.
Before
no,
you
that's fine.
approve the chapter without seeing some of it.
Well, of course, which
Just-
makes sense because we still haven't seen the map, right?
There are, no, there are other, there's actually historic preservation, economic development, and parking and traffic also. They're a part of that
Wow.
chapter. So,
Thank you.
and the land use map.
How you did that 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
5 years. Good for you.
Just
Barbara Lee?
It's not under the section what we're talking about, but I strongly recommend that we get some assistance to the planning department, because this is what protects us. So when you come back in for discussion and you got that extra money floating around, or extra assistance floating around, or extra IT people floating around, right here, this department. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara Lee. Okay. We have implementation, we have water. We should probably take a break to the extent that we want to even move past where we are today, tonight. But let's talk about that.
I think we should do our build-out numbers.
So we can jump to another, as Councilmember Delmar just proposed. We could just jump right to build out if you guys don't want to do the other pieces first. So we have land use, water resources, build out, and implementation. I'm fine with all of the above. I'm fine, not doing anything else tonight. I'm fine going right to build out. I'm fine going to water resources, then build out. I mean, what's the appetite
I would
up here?
like to do build-out, and that's it. But
I was under the impression that's pretty time sensitive, right? So.
Because you get the EIR
Yeah.
going forward.
To keep this moving
Why
forward.
don't we do that?
Is there anything, is there anything on the implementation? Because I don't think implementation takes a ton of time here to talk about. I mean, it's essentially the plan to implement your general plan, so.
really, the implementation plan.
Because we might be able to knock that out here.
Well, it's long and involved.
It is. Is there any, look, we don't have to do that right now.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if the timeline as it's laid out or the process is really something that I would want to mess with anyway, so.
For those policies that you've added,
Mhm.
we would have to actually also add implementation measures.
Okay, well, so
To
then we
me,
can.
the implementation plan should be
We
done
can do that later.
at the very end, once everything's done.
Is that all right, Madam City Manager? Or
However you would like to do it.
Well,
The
Mayor and
whole
City
plan or
Council.
just for each chapter? We're gonna wait till the very end of the
I-
implementation for.
My thing would be get through the whole, section.
Oh, section.
And
by
then
section.
do the implementation plan.
Does that work? I mean,
It's however you'd like to do it.
okay.
We could
well,
do it at the end of each, each section, or the end of the entire chapter.
And really, the
At the
plan
very, very end. I wouldn't recommend
doing
at the very, very end, because then it won't be fresh in your mind what you just reviewed this evening.
Yep. And the planning commission's going through the implementation
Yeah.
right now.
I mean, if you
so.
like the way it's done, like the plan, the way that it's organized, with that,
I have one comment on it. I just thought that the intervals were a little too broad. I mean, well,
We did what we, going to comment a few seconds ago, we based it upon our current staffing level of what we felt was achievable. You add additional resources, more can get done. We still have the water moratorium, 40 items. We still have the regular
Yeah.
projects that are submitted to the planning department that unfortunately take precedence over this because of
does, but-
deadlines. So we can, we
I
can.
mean, but
review this.
5-year increments?
I did see that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Aren't there some other policies, though, that are in the water moratorium cross-reference here, too?
Yes, and those we would be doing sooner
And
because.
can you, I think, didn't we talk about this, to get a list of those that cross-reference, so it doesn't, so we don't think we're getting it done in 2015? I mean, there are some policies that
That are
are.
coming back sooner. Within the next 2 years, we have to get done.
And that was the only criterion for the intervals, was the staffing issue.
No, the criterion was just to keep it organized, 5-year increments. We could have, this was for presentation purposes. If you would like it more details in 2-year increments, it just means a longer piece of paper.
Okay.
We were just trying to keep it user-friendly and a good size.
Yeah, and, I'd like to hear what the planning commission has to say on the implementation. That'll probably be helpful as well. So, I'm okay with,
Already?
oh, you've already
Yes,
reviewed this one?
They've already reviewed and approved this.
We did look at the implementation intervals on this, and we did move some things around that we thought had a higher priority. So.
Yeah. My view is I looked through this and I didn't know that I could add much value here, I guess is an easy way to say it. I wasn't going to second guess the implementation program as it was laid out. Now, I think that other folks might disagree and want to,
Well,
might want to alter some of these things. But
Yeah, I mean, as far as prioritizing, you've got the R1 seems to be mostly in the current 2015 to 2020 timeframe. But I mean, but before we get to commercial or institutional, that's out 2020.
To 2025.
The reason for that is that the majority of projects that come to us are in the R1 zone.
Yeah,
Some in the R3, institutional rarely, commercial. Generally, they're just changes of use. There generally is not new commercial construction, so
Yeah.
that kind of drove that quicker turnaround, so that it has a quicker effect on projects.
Okay, I'm just wondering, just as a possible suggestion, maybe just for the near term, the first 5 years, maybe make that part a little more granular. What are we going to do in the next 2 years versus what are we going to do in the next 5?
If
I don't
that's
know.
what you'd like us to do.
I just,
I
throw it
actually
out there.
support that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
it's fine.
A more detailed schedule for the first 5 years.
And I don't think you've got anything in the 2030 to 2035 range. Why not just eliminate that and just jam it into the next 2025 to 2030?
I don't
mean,
think I
that's
saw
all.
anything. Did you see anything in
I
the
didn't.
2025?
There's I think a couple things.
Oh.
but-
Well, you know what, this is for land use, there may be something in the other chapters.
Okay.
You
that's
guys
fine.
keep forgetting there's much, much more.
Yeah,
So
but we
much
trust
more.
we trust you and the planning commission on that. All right. Well, then the implementation I think that for the most part this looks fine. Let's just I guess
More
bring back
details for the first
the
5
detail in the
years.
near term. Okay. Let's go to the build out numbers, and then if we want to do water resources, which isn't that long. It's 30. Excuse me. It's not 30. It's 8 pages. 9 pages. I wouldn't mind getting that done tonight, but let's do the build out numbers first.
Let's see how long it takes to do the build
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
That would be Exhibit E.
Yep.
It's a list, a pretty detailed list by address, number of dwelling units, square footage for non-residential. This number has been reduced from 181, I think, to 121 for the dwelling units.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say I'm okay with it. We've, the
we
last council
Talked about it.
tackled this. I mean, we came back with, I think, a good suggestion here is to eliminate one aspect of that. And I'm okay with it, the way it is.
Where is that?
You're on Exhibit E, it's the
Exhibit E.
foldout.
It's a long one.
I am as well, and I'll echo that point, which is the previous council we did. I mean, we grappled with this for a pretty long time at a council meeting, maybe 2. And I know that it came before us, and we considered it for a few minutes, and then wanted to revisit it later. So I've looked at this now, I guess, 3 times, and the build-out numbers look right to me, and I think the reduced number makes more sense.
I'm fine with it, but I also think, is there anybody in the audience?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to open this up to public comment. Anything before I do?
No questions.
Nope? Okay. I will open this up to public comment.
Where did our back row go?
Yeah.
They're sleeping.
Okay, we'll bring it back. Any final comments on this?
Yeah, I'm fine with this too. It seems to be very reasonable. It's not too blue sky. It seems to be pretty defensible, and it does get rid of the earlier problem we saw with it. So.
And the planning commission blessed this number as well, right? So it's okay.
Did we get a yes on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we can do water.
Let's do water, and it's 8 pages. And
Okay, and Giants are ahead 3-2.
are they really? Wow. We have 2 Giants fans up here.
Giants are ahead 3-2. The Dodgers get eliminated, and the Giants are winning.
It's really unbelievable. I mean, the salt in the wound.
This one doesn't say, it just has.
This is Exhibit D.
Okay.
Oh, it's before the implementation, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let me know when everyone's there.
I don't think I have that.
It's right, it's hard to find. It's right before the,
Right after implementation.
it's right after implementation.
There we go. There we go.
And just because we had made a comment earlier in the other section about existing conditions and possible future, I just didn't know if there's any reference in this section to say of any potential future drought conditions, but to make sure we capture that somewhere. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I think that, the paragraph that they added, to your point, it does talk about sure that in the future there will be adequate supplies, but you could, if you wanted to add something there to even make it more apparent that we're worried about future droughts.
And it can
Good.
even be the same language from what we used earlier.
Yeah. Yep. I think it was
What was the language you used earlier?
in recognition of the potential for future drought. And I think you could put that right at the beginning of, if you go to the beginning here with that inserted paragraph, the drought of, and then starting the next paragraph to say, in recognition of the potential for future drought, comma, current and future residents of Southern California. Let's do that. It's good.
Comment on the next paragraph. Again, this is just a matter of just being accurate in what we're saying. I'm just concerned that it sounds like our decreed right was reduced permanently. It sounds like that. It doesn't say, what are the conditions under which it gets returned to our 1764. So I just had a suggestion just to insert just a clause in there. Just let me read it to you. It says, that decreed right was reduced to 940 acre-feet in 2014 at the direction of the Raymond Basin Management Board in response to historic low water levels in the eastern unit. Then I would add, and is in effect until the level in Arcadia Orange Grove number 1 returns to the 500 foot above average mean sea level. Just because that, it just clarifies that it's not permanent and what the conditions are when we get back to the 1764. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's fine.
And I would just say historically low.
If you could just repeat that one more time, we have a number of
Yeah,
people taking detailed notes here.
Okay, you want to,
Where are
okay,
you?
I'm sorry, on page 15, in,
15, 22, I
I
think.
mean, 22.
22.
22.
Yeah, what, yours does say page 15.
why, it says page 15.
Strange.
Okay.
What's page 22 here?
Section 5, water resource.
Makes
Ours
it-
says
I'm going from the electronic copy, folks. There's a paper copy in front of you. This was downloaded from the city website, so I think we're talking about the same thing.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so anyway, page 22, yeah, right in the middle of that third paragraph, you're going to insert right after eastern unit, right in before the sentence that starts, in addition to the decreed rights. So you're going to insert the language that says, and is in effect until the level at Arcadia Orange Grove number 1 well is at 500 feet above the acronym is AMSL, that stands for Average Mean Sea Level. So above the average mean sea level. Director Inman, do I have that right? Yes. Okay, thank you.
That's a yes. That's fine. And I would just make it to historically low water levels. From the guy that said I wasn't going to wordsmith, but I just think it's an adverb there.
Okay, I have another suggestion.
Yep.
My page 17, which
Which is 24 for us.
okay, so just, it says in the middle, this was a change, right after the change that was made. You've got it marked up where main basin is struck. Okay, it says Sierra Madre may at any time request to purchase water.
I don't have anything.
Yeah, maybe I don't have that.
I don't have anything struck deep.
No. No.
Oh,
see
Sierra
what you
Madre may at any time.
A third source of water. Okay.
On what page?
At page 24, the hard copy 24.
Hard copy 24, I don't have anything struck.
Yeah, I see that.
I think we got a clean copy in here.
Oh, man, this is
We
different.
got a clean copy.
I
We
have a
didn't get a
clean
red
copy.
line. Yeah,
Well, that's why I thought it was just so tip-top. I mean, you read it and there's nothing that was changed.
got a clean copy here.
Okay.
Here, I'll show you what I
Strikeout,
have.
there's no strikeout.
Okay. What's struck is main, oh, yeah, this is just a clean copy.
It's a clean
My-
copy.
I have the red line, okay. So anyway, after,
What is the paragraph? A third source of water
Yeah,
starts
it's
the
that paragraph.
paragraph.
so my concern is, it starts with Sierra Madre may at any time request to purchase water. But there's a limit to how much water we can purchase. So it's, it just makes it sound like we can get water anytime. But I mean, our allocation is only, we're allowed up to
There's no red
10% of what the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District provides. So, I don't know, am I nitpicking there?
No, I mean, I think you don't want to give the impression that we have this
Right.
unlimited source.
Right, our allocation is 10% of what they import via the state water project. And in times like this, when the state water project isn't bringing in much water, that, our 10% could be very little.
I think you
So-
can say Sierra Madre may at any time request to purchase water from SGV, MWD, subject to, subject to their, I mean, you want to just say that their supplies are limited.
Yeah,
And,
that's, yeah.
and I don't know how you want to say that, but subject to their limited supply from the state, or, I'm not saying it well, but
Well, first of all, there's a finite limit. They've got a bucket of water, and we only get this much of it, So first of all, I wanted to say that it's just not an unlimited supply, I mean, there's 3 other cities competing for this water.
why wouldn't you say Sierra Madre may at any time request to purchase a limited supply of water from,
Okay.
Okay, say it again now, John. Your Sierra Madre may.
Sierra Madre may at any time request to purchase a limited supply of water.
I think that addresses it without getting too specific. I just don't want this to sound like we have this unlimited supply from the SGV MWD.
Yep, I agree. Well, folks, I'm not sure how productive this is going to be if we don't have the red line
You
here.
can make a quick copy if you'd like. It'll take 2 seconds. It's not a long chapter.
There's not much redlined in here.
There's not much red line in it, yeah.
Just really minor stuff. I mean, I wasn't even concerned about the red line. I just reading it just saw that. I wasn't concerned
Who
about.
did the redlining?
The water conservation policies are shown underlined.
Got it.
And who did the redlining for this?
The red, well, that was just a
I need you at the,
That
this,
particular one was just
need you at the, sorry, it's being broadcast, and they can't hear you at home.
That particular one was just a correction, it was a typo.
Okay, I'm just, I guess my question is, because this was written by, the water resources was not part of the general plan, right? I
Well,
mean,
right-
like, we didn't write that. That came from one of the departments.
That was correct, that's Public Works, and what
So who did
this,
the red line for this?
well, there are two things going on. One would be the Planning Commission making changes, the other one would be staff correcting typos.
Okay, that's
This
what I wanted.
particular one on that page was a typo. That is the only correction on the overview of existing conditions. That was that kind of correction. Everything else that you see here that has been changed has to do with the water conservation policies that have been inserted and reviewed by the Planning Commission.
And the department has given it, it's okay. to
Right,
this-
exactly.
okay.
They're the ones who inserted that.
I just want to make sure that, okay, so the department did, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Page 28.
I have one more suggestion. Under objective R15,
Page
conservation.
28, or excuse me, R15, so that's R page 29.
This is under conservation of water during times of drought. I just would consider adding a policy that says, consider a rate structure that encourages the efficient use of water and that does not unfairly discriminate those with large lots. So what that is hinting at is kind of the water allocation method that we discussed but did not have time to implement. So this just says consider it. Don't develop it, but just take that into consideration.
Okay.
Repeat that, please.
Where do you want that, John?
It would be R 15.6?
Yes, R 15.6.
6.
Consider a rate structure that encourages the efficient use of water and that does not unfairly discriminate against those with large lots. That's all I have.
And I do like R 16.2, which says collaborate with other Raymond Basin water producers, especially the city of Arcadia, to eliminate the overdraft of the Raymond Basin. I really think that's a really good policy. Any other comments on these objectives or policies?
Yep. And their implementation plan looks good.
Yeah.
We're going to change all of the years, so it's 2015 to 2017 and then 2018 to 2020, right?
The first 5 years will be shown in detail, 2015 to 2020. We'll do in smaller blocks of time like the other implementation.
I know, but I just think that actually, I don't know why we have to do it in 5-year blocks. Can we do just like, can we do 2015 to 2017, then 2018 to 2020, and then do 2020, and kind of get rid of and combine the 2025 to 2030, so it'd be 2025 to 2035. So do the last 10 years. So it'd be
If you could repeat those again from the
No.
beginning. I'm writing, I'm sorry. I'm trying to write as you're talking, I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up.
So, I think the time frame should be 2015 to 2017,
Okay.
2018
2018.
to 2020, and then
21
to 2025, that would be fine, and then 2025 to 2035.
Okay. And
you also don't have on here biannual, like every 2 years, and part of the things do say that we need to review every 2 years, so that needs to be part of it.
Okay.
And I see you eliminated the ambiguity between biannual versus every 2 years. It's always that question, does biannual mean every 2 years or twice a year? Yeah. It's both, right? Depending on how you use it. Yeah.
It is both, yeah.
Barbara Lee.
A quick question for my own curiosity's sake. When is the state going to be asking us to begin our next general plan?
They don't.
They
Oh,
don't
yeah,
ask
they don't.
us.
Yeah.
So it's not in
They don't ask us.
2016, we're not due for another 20-year update?
I have a
Be
feeling
after
we
I'm
won't be.
dead.
Yeah, I feel
Because we haven't
like we
turned
won't be
this one
doing this
in.
for a very long time.
They don't ask us to do it, Barbara.
In 3035, they're going to look at the record
That's
and
right.
see what we went through, and they're going to say, we're not touching it.
Any public comment on the water resources chapter? Questions? It's okay for Preserve Sierra Madre? Okay. Well, I think we're done with that. And, you know, on the last piece, the schedule for the planning commission, I don't know if anyone has any comments. Godspeed.
information.
Yeah, you know, good luck and thank you for all the work. I mean, there's a lot there still, which will come to us soon, so. Thank you very much for everyone in the audience who stuck with us. It was a long meeting, and staff for all your help. I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and we'll see you guys next week.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.